Okay, this is episode 10 of Counterpoints, sponsored by Alpha Draft. So if you want to play fantasy esports such as Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you can do so there. They usually have most of the lands on there. Do it if you want to. If you don't, I haven't got a gun to your head. It's just optional, you know. We don't live in a totalitarian society. In the description box below. So anyway, I'm Thorin, host of Counterpoints. My guests for this week, I don't know why I say this week, it's not even a weekly podcast. Just right now, my guests. Guest number one is in the far right box. It's SirScoots. Now, the good thing about SirScoots, okay, I actually told him this to his face, the 2 weeks ago or something when I was at CEVO. I even said to Scott, right, because this just shows you how perspective is everything here, Rich, right? I said to Scott, when I actually first met him in 2002 or something, I actually used to think he was old back then. I used to think, man, this guy's old. But what I didn't realise is when I actually looked into it, he was barely older than I am now, Rich. The key thing about you, Scoots, is you're like one of those actors, like one of those great Hollywood actors who plays authority figures, you know. They actually used to be called in the stage, they used to be called the king actor, you know, the guy who always plays the king. The key thing about being one of those actors, Scott, is you're supposed to already sort of look quite old and authoritative, you know. So as a result, you get 50 years out of playing that role, you know. If you don't just actually get that. So the key thing about you was when you were 35, you just looked exactly like this, Scott. I'm telling you, nothing's changed. That's what's beautiful about it, because you've got longevity going on there, you know. So obviously you were around for a long time.
I got to say as well, I don't remember him ever looking any different.
He just looked exactly like this, mate.
Yeah, just exactly. So
I think if anything, I think a little less gray and maybe a little more up in here, but generally, and obviously the beard's fairly new, but yeah, generally always gray, with some shade, and always balding for sure. Thank you for that warm and amazing introduction, Duncan.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it should be called.
Introduction. I like that.
That'd been in my opening segment. Okay, so the other person we've got on the show is Richard Lewis, aka Bullier of Eastern European commentator extraordinaire.
Definitely Bully of the Year.
Yeah.
Known for it. I've done Raheem now. I'm looking forward to getting Slam at some point.
He's going to get slammed, mate. I mean, if you don't do it, I am. So it's
good. Well,
keep your ass
we got to stick together. But yeah, I am into the bully.
I mean, this is just going to be an in-joke, Rich. But basically, I'm gonna take him out like that OSEP guy at the end of True Detective. Anyway, we'll keep going on with that.
Spoilers.
That's how I imagine it going down, mate. Anyway, I'll only take one. That's all I'm saying. I'll just take one to put him down.
Call me Velcoro.
Yeah.
I'll back you up.
So okay. Anyway. Richard's obviously been a veteran journalist. Here's the key thing, actually, Richard, to tie this into what I said about Scoots there. The great thing about Scoots and why we need him around, aside from the fact he's a great guy, he's part of the Gfinity edge, we've got that whole bonding going on there, Rich. But one of the key reasons, I hate to tell you this, Scott, as to why me and Richard need to keep you in the scene, okay, is that, like I say, you've always been considered like the older person in the scene. So as soon as you're gone, eventually we're going to be hitting 40 or so. All those young journalists are going to be 22. Suddenly they'll stop calling us veterans. We'll just be called old, you know. So at the moment, Scoots, we get to just be called veterans, you know, being in the scene a long time. But eventually people will just be the old guy. We need you, Red Eye, and a few other people to stay around the scene, and then just by in proportion to you, we'll be doing good, I think, still.
So I'm like the age buffer, so you'll always be younger, right? In that scenario, I got you. All right, well, I'll do it as long as I can, you know.
But anyway, yeah. So what I was going to tie into
as many death threats as Richard, so he's going to be gone long before me, probably.
So that's the thing. So the thing I want to tie into that is obviously Richard is legitimately a veteran of the scene now. He's been around many, many years, more than 10. So actually, I want to start there. So I can give everyone a very simple, brief introduction to Scoots, okay, which is actually the part that no one ever mentioned of Scoots, which is that before you were involved with the industry side of the aspect, working for Gottfrag, or even before that MFA VP where you were doing video stuff, you actually were a player originally in the betas of CS on what was at the time one of the top NA teams. Admittedly, this is the betas. The beta only lasted a year and a half or something, and obviously it changed very rapidly. And I believe it was pretty soon before you weren't a starting member in the lineup, right? You were just managing the team fairly early on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was part of a team called Clan. We weren't a team. We were clans back then, right? UGP. And literally the two guys in California, high school kids, started it right when the day one, beta one dropped. They were coming from Action Quake, right? And they go, oh, Counter-Strike, what is this? Downloaded it, started playing it. And yeah, we kicked everyone's ass on the OGL and a bunch of leagues and ladders. We held the record for 44 weeks owning the OGL ladder, knocked off by Weekend Warriors, to give you a perspective of the timing of this in North America. But yeah, very quickly, we were recruiting, and there were much, much, much better Counter-Strike players than me. So, and again, we were getting more competitive. There were these leagues and these weekly things that were popping up, right? The Cals and all that. And it was very quickly not smart for me to play for the team. So I very quickly shifted to kind of being one of the guys that owned it, if you will, although there's nothing really to own, and kind of running it and recruiting and keep it going, taking guys to CPL, that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I did play at a couple CPLs, but again, very quickly replaced myself, for lack of an easier way to put it, just so we could be a little bit more competitive. But again, we never could stand up to like the likes of the 3Ds or the EGs or the complexities or any of the rivals, any of those era teams. Our guys played for those teams. To kind of put it in perspective, Matt Stevenson, Bloodshot, played for us first. Bullseye from 3D played for us first. Bombs from Weekend Warriors and 3D played for us first. We found a lot of these guys. But very quickly, the business blew right by UGP. We were never a paid sponsored team. So, yeah, that's kind of my playing history.
Yeah, so I wanted to give that background because I'm sure a lot of people don't know that, and they probably assume you were just always a manager guy or something. And so actually, the reason why I think that's key is because it gives you a different entry point to the scene, because, listen, as we're probably going to discuss on this show, I'm always very wary, just because of my history in esports, of anyone who's like a manager type dude who comes in, because a lot of those in our day early on, there was always something a bit shady about them, etc. So anyway, I wanted to give the basis that you were actually just a guy who loved Counter-Strike, you played Counter-Strike, and then naturally you moved into this position because eventually it made sense to get like some younger guy who's better at the game, or just some guy as the game expands and gets better. Yeah, that all makes sense. Okay, so in Richard's case, the reason why this is going to be an interesting podcast is, like, I know a lot of Scoots' background because we were both there similar period of time, like the early 2000s, but it was all Counter-Strike. Well, it wasn't 1.6 at the time, but the original Counter-Strike of the franchise. Okay, but Richard's obviously goes back into Source, and then slightly before that into more generalized gaming. So where actually was the first period? What was the actual first year, Richard, that you were doing esports stuff? What was it?
So I rock up to university in '98, and I've come from like a fucking colliery town. I'm just a working class lad. Like, I don't know what the fuck to expect about university, right? So, I wasn't even planning to go, actually. Like, so I trained up with my best friend at the time. We were going to join the Royal Marines together, and I failed the fucking medical. And it just so happened that my A levels had come in, and I had a result that was good enough to go to university. I did pretty well, despite everyone in the college I attended saying I was, going to suck and naturally fail, because I went to a bit more of a posh college, and they were like, they didn't like my background, so it was like, you're working class, shit sinks to the bottom is pretty much what I was told. So I get to university. And I have I'm just trying to find my fucking feet, man, because I'm out of my depth. I'm for the first time, people want to treat me like I've got something to say, like an intellectual. I've always been a gamer, but I had to just get to grips with university first. And then once I kind of got settled in, about 99, 2000, I started writing for a magazine. I started doing music reviews. I won't bore everyone with the story again about why I got removed as a music journalist. Needless to say, I said something I shouldn't have done regarding the late Whitney Houston and maybe Bobby Brown's fists. And I ended up being a games reviewer. Now, at this time, as you guys know firsthand, around about this time in 99, 2000, there was this thing competitive gaming was being talked about seriously. And it always kind of piqued my interest. And I looked into it, in particular StarCraft and everything else that was going on and taking off, and Counter-Strike as well. And I knew nothing about it, but I was kind of poking around the edges of the meal with my fork, if you like. By 2001, 2002, I understood it, but instead of getting involved with that, because that was inaccessible to me, I was surrounded by console gamers. So the sort of primary hardcore gamers I met were all fighting game community people. So it was like Tekken was kind of like the first ever gaming event I ever went to, was a Tekken tournament in a barn in Wales. where the winner got a PlayStation 2, a silver PlayStation 2, and a copy of whatever Tekken was out that year. It might even have been Tekken Tag, the much maligned Tekken Tag, but you know, it had Tekken Bowl on it, so that was pretty good. So from that point, it sort of piqued my interest because I realized people could get fucking super interested in this. And I fancied myself as a bit of a Louis Theroux type journalist. Like I wanted to be a little bit gonzo, which is where the name eventually came from. You know, it sort of embed myself into scenes and communities. And then after I graduated and everything else and left university, you know, I was sort of desperately trying to get in. And the last thing I'd done was games reviews. So I started pitching to magazines about the idea of like writing about online gaming regularly. So this is about 2004. CSS had just been sort of announced, Counter-Strike Source. And the magazine said, look, we can get you an account. Do you want to write about it? And that's where it sort of took off. So I ended up going onto a public server. The whole point, the whole premise of the article was to be able to write about online gaming communities. So if you wanted to join one, you wouldn't be a noob. It was just called the noob. That was what it was. So it was like, I'll be the noob for you. I'll get all the glossary. I'll get all the terminology. I'll tell you how it works, what the etiquette is, and write it all down in regular monthly articles. And then you won't have to feel so out of place if you want to join. So it's sort of a way of breaking down the barrier for online gaming. And I pitched this CSS article, and nobody wanted it. Like, I just couldn't sell this fucking thing. I don't know why. It must have been shit. But nobody wanted it. Like, I just couldn't sell it for love nor money. But all the people who had sort of guided me through, because the first public server I went on was something called UK Squaddies. And it was really fortuitous, because as that closed down, everybody said, hey, we're migrating to this other one. It's called Fragmasters. Went over with them. And then after the article never got published, I was like, I've made all these friends, right? So we all started hanging out. We started playing regularly. And before I knew it, conveniently, the top players in the UK scene at the time would play on that public server. And I just got talking to them. We struck up a relationship, and it just sort of snowballed from there. That within a few years, I was playing with them regularly, and I eventually went on to manage most of them in some capacity at some point.
Okay, so one of the things that, in terms of how we're going to frame this is, I think we all have slightly different perspectives here, because Scott was literally in the NA scene, which at the time, believe it or not, for people who are in modern day Counter-Strike, was actually the scene. Even though Europeans were the better at Counter-Strike, the biggest tournaments in general were always the ones framed. That, in fact, the CPL in America, even when there was a World Champion, it wasn't ESWC, Steve used to decide who the best team was. We always thought, like, until you win or lose that, no one really knows if you are the best or who number one is. So actually, that was always initially like Mecca for Counter-Strike. That you wanted to go to the big seasonal CPL every 6 months and see if you could win that. So Scott has that background coming from there. I went to some of those. Other times, I wasn't someone who went to every event. Meanwhile, even though I come from the UK, I actually wasn't involved in the UK scene at all. So Richard was in the UK, mainly in Europe during this whole time. So I'm hoping as we go through this, what we can do is contrast some things from now with how things were then, but we'll all have maybe a little bit different edges or maybe some things that we all share. So one area I want to start with is back in this time, Scott, in the early days of Counter-Strike. This might sound funny to someone listening now in 2015, but you know now in 2015 when people write stories that go like this, oh, esports is getting big and it's now a thing where it's getting, now the media is interested in newspapers and TV stations. The problem with that story, why I'm a bit jaded with it, Scott, is I've heard that story every single year for the last 15 years. Every year it's the same story, like, oh, it's just on the brink of getting really big, and now everyone's into it, and they always, even to this day, they oversell it, Like, instead of just being like someone in Dota 2 just won, well, as a team, they won $6 million, right? Yeah, it's getting really big, but even then they have to go even further, like, oh, now everyone in America is going to want to be like him. Like, no, obviously not. That's ridiculous, isn't it? That's another 50 odd years ago, where, if anything. So what I want to ask you, Scoots, is back in the early 2000s, you were an adult already, then you weren't just some wide-eyed kid. What realistically was kind of the scope of esports for you, like where you lived, like in your town, in your state, in America in general, back when you were first going to CPLs? How many people do you think even knew amongst the populace, amongst gamers? What do you think? I
mean, it was definitely an era of a lot of people connected to the scene, but that was the fan base. We were somehow already into it. We didn't have an outside fan base, right? So we might have had a pretty big Counter-Strike base, but we were all Counter-Strikers, right? Or you were Quakers. So perspectively, It's kind of funny because you mentioned the CPL, and some of those prize purses were pretty freaking big back then, right? And Angel was also really good about making sure his events got that same kind of press that you were just talking about. And CNNs and these other mainstreams would come in and go, "What is this?" And it'd be an Angel Munoz interview. This is the future, cyber athletes, big money, careers, all that kind of stuff. And here, I think what we don't have now that we had then were a lot more LAN tournaments that also kind of fed that homegrown fan because you were already that hardcore gamer, right? CPL qualification tournaments. You mentioned my town in Phoenix, Arizona. There used to be one for a couple seasons of CPL. They would use LAN tournaments regionally to feed in qualification spots, That's all kind of gone away because the internet's gotten better, all those things. PCs have gotten better at home. So kids, at least in North America, don't necessarily go rent time at a PC Bang or a LAN center anymore. But I'm totally with you, dude. We've heard the exact same stuff. It's a historical cycle that we get every couple of years, right? And what's growing is just the pie, right? It certainly is more viewers and it is more prize purse.
Yeah.
And the exposure circle grows every time, right? Whether we have a scandal, the exposure grows, like drug testing, or we have an international with a prize purse that gets the outside eyes in. But it's kind of funny. The more things stay the same, the more things, are different. And I think I said that backwards. But you know what I mean? Like the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's it's not much different than it's been, except the money's bigger and the fan bases are bigger. But all the same bullshit that we've seen for the last 10 years is here. The suits are here. They just have more money to scam you with now, right? Siege is gone. Siege was replaced by a guy with venture capital and $4 million, right? To put it in perspective. Yeah. If anyone knows who Siege was from the old rival days. I don't know if I answered your question, Duncan.
Yeah, you got around there. So, okay, Richard, when you first were coming into this scene, like you were just describing, introduction there, like getting from literally becoming like a noob on a public server to then getting to know players and gradually kind of you by naturally sort of entering into the esports side. Like, how big was esports to you then, just from your eyes at the time? Like, what was the scale, did you think, when you started getting into it?
For me, as a CSS player and just a guy that had only really been exposed to public, all the stuff that you guys were already involved in at that time seemed huge. It actually did, from the outside looking in. And I remember distinctly when I was writing about Counter-Strike Source and a few of my articles had taken off, I had some pretty, sizable, I guess for the time, offers financially to go and write about other games. Why don't you write about Dota? Why don't you write about 1.6? But I had a pretty good job at the time, and I never believed in a million years I'd do this for a living, that I'd be involved with this for a living. So I was just like, nah, fuck that, man. CSS needs people. It needs good people. It needs somebody to sort of watch what's happening. If the scene's to develop, I believe it can, and I'm going to stay put. And everyone was like, you're an idiot. And ultimately they were right, because I was an idiot. Because if I'd gone on that particular bandwagon and I'd been affiliated with early Gotfrag, or rather not early Gotfrag, but mid-tier Gotfrag, and I had guys like BSL vouch for me and people like that. If I'd established myself as a 1.6 journalist, I could have just fucking dined out on that for the rest of my career, like some of these other fucks have. I could have, not you, Scott, obviously. And,
I was never a journalist, so I would never take that as an insult, sir.
Good, just in case.
I was Gotfrag video. Now you can't talk shit about Gotfrag TV, so
yeah, Gotfrag TV is sick. Yeah, everyone knows that. So there was a real opportunity there for me, and I did feel big. It did seem big. I'm not saying I ever got starstruck. I think one of the reasons why I was always so readily accepted as I slowly worked my way up was that I was always just myself. I didn't really take it too seriously, but I respected what everybody did. And striking that balance is something that people don't really seem to do quite so much these days. It's like, look, you're a good player, cool. I've done shit as well. Let's just interact at a personal level. That's what I was always interested in. So I always thought it was huge. And I heard all the same stories you guys did, StarCraft and They're treated like football players out there.
Yeah.
They walk the streets, and women drop to their knees and blow them. And great, awesome. Sounds like a dream come true. Like if only I'd played that game. If only I understood that game. 1.6, and all the stories were filtering down to the CSS community. And actually, what was really weird was, it was very much like a League of Legends and Dota rivalry, in the sense that Dota hates on League for being inferior, but LoL are like, spit on us more, Dota masters. And it was kind of like that in the beginning of like CSS as well. Like all the CSS players at the beginning of Source aspired to be like the one. They knew they were gods. They knew they were gods. Everybody used to tag up, like when you fake nicked as a player, it was never a Source player. Like, fuck that, I play with that guy. And I want to tag up as Spawn. I want to tag up as Heaton, right? Like if I'm gonna do a fantasy, like live a little, like don't be a Source player, be a 1.6 player. And that's how it was. So all the Source players looked up to the 1.6 players. They kind of acknowledged, either consciously or subconsciously, that their scene was never going to be as big, that they were never going to be the same level of superstar. So for me, it wasn't that I didn't get involved in those scenes because A, I didn't want to, or B, I didn't think it was big. It wasn't that I had my eyes open from the start. I was just as green as anybody else. But the point was that I wanted to stay with Source because that's where I felt I belonged. There was no financial imperative to betray the family that I'd become a part of, if you know what I mean. It was just like, I belong here. This is where I'm at. And if I can write about this and make this game seem exciting and make these people sound like they're stars, then maybe one day we'll be talking about them in the same way we talk about 1.6 players. That was always my goal, ultimately.
So, Scott, since you were also involved after you were a player with production stuff, and then obviously with Gotfrag, and for people who don't know, Gotfrag at the time was basically the equivalent of like a HLTV.org, except that Counter-Strike, I guess now Counter-Strike's really big, but it was the game at the time. It was the biggest game. It was the League of Legends of its era, in a smaller esports world overall. As in, if you took esports and you scaled it down, it was the game that had like the 60 to 70% of the attention seemed to be on Counter-Strike as the game, So what I want to know is, kind of in line with what I just said there, now, people who've come into CSGO now in the last 3 to 6 months, they already might think, well, CSGO is huge, right? But obviously, Counter-Strike itself had to fall away as games like World of Warcraft became huge, StarCraft 2, League of Legends, and it just became like the 4th or 5th game, it'd never been before. So since you were around in the days when it was number one, and now it's not really number one now, but it's close to it, it's not far off, What's the difference in scale? Like, for example, since you were on the back end side, I'm hoping maybe you can give me some perspective here, because we always used to see, like, if there was a big CPL event, admittedly, CPLs, there was only like 2 per year, but if there was a big CPL, there did seem to be the same kind of furore around it as, like, with an international now, everyone was stopped what they were doing, everyone was watching it, everyone watched the final, that's what everyone remembers, and it did seem like there was a lot of people wanting to watch. Like, I remember there used to be, everyone was on the HLTV servers, which is, I guess for Dota, it's easy. It's like the equivalent of the in-game client way of watching the game. There was no streaming, obviously. But the thing is, back then, the CPL, the main org, used to give numbers of who'd watch the event. Now, that's what I want to kind of like also ask you about is, a lot of people were often skeptical about the numbers they gave. Like, I could believe maybe 50,000 people wanted to watch, but they used to claim that, we had 30,000 for this final and something. Like, what do you think on this aspect? What was the scope of CS in like the first 5 or so years or so? And do you think they ever were hitting numbers like 50,000 or something watching a game?
Well, I can give you the stuff I definitely know for sure, and because it's been bantered about, and it's a pretty standard number that I think back in the day, the highest in-game Half-Life TV viewership that a CPL event got, I want to say between 28,000 and 32,000 watching a final. That was Half-Life TV, the in-game client, right? And then Gotfrag TV did produce a CPL final. CPL Winter 2000.
Who won it? Tell me, and I'll tell you the tournament.
Elements team. They blew out the other team.
Oh, right. NOA.
Final.
Yeah, that was 2004 Winter. NOA beat the Eyeballers in the final.
Wait, 2004? That early? No.
Oh, you mean 2003 then, if it was SK Gaming who rocked?
No, it would have been later, because we did it after TSN did one, and ITG did one, and we did one. I'll look it up. Anyway, 2000, I want to say 5, maybe. CPO. Okay.
Well, I don't think Element was in the final. Oh, Element's team lost in the final one, if you want that.
Let me see. SK Gaming. No, it wasn't Lunatic High. Anyway, so... I'll keep looking. There's the one CPL tournament that we actually did. the Counter-Strike Final Four. A couple other video organizations were doing other stuff. And we peaked at a little over 5,000 concurrents watching the final as well. And that was using a tool called Octoshape. It's a peer-to-peer streaming tool you had to use because there was no Twitch. There was no free bandwidth. So you made a deal with Octoshape. End user downloaded a client and then watched your stream. And we peaked at 5,000 people, and we lost our minds. We thought we had hit the mother lode. 5,000 people watching. So that plus 28, 30,000 watching on a Half-Life TV. I think the numbers, though, did get bigger on both accounts as we got into the later era of Counter-Strike when CPL falls away and like European CS really blows up without us.
Yeah.
Arbalete Cups, those kind of days, I think the numbers would have been bigger. But that's when we went to the CGS and all that crap went away and we never came back, right? And then eventually EG comes back, but not. We kind of missed that window, right? Let me look that up because that's gonna bug me now. Or was it a summer?
Can you give me more details?
In what regard?
Like about the teams or whoever was playing there? And
Yeah. I'm just on. It was Element's team. It was the same. I'll tell you. This will help. It was the same CPL that CZM won against Jibbo.
Yeah, that was
Quake.
winter 2006, mate.
Six. Yes.
That was where Element's team was in the final for CS, but they got raped.
Yes, it was still a blowout.
It was where Fnatic won their first big event.
It was a terrible setup. It was a bad CPL. Thank you, 6, because that would make sense. Because it was, because I wasn't at Gotfrag TV in 3 and 4.
Okay.
Quite yet. We weren't rolling.
That makes
so,
sense.
but I think those numbers would have increased a little bit. But to put it in perspective, Shroud fires his personal stream up and gets 20,000 people watching him pug. So certainly, even low-tier events are destroying those numbers stream-wise. But what we are seeing a heck of a lot of is events not giving GoTV away anymore, right? That tool. So I don't know if we have that vehicle of viewership anymore as much, right?
Okay.
It's stream only. Yeah.
Okay, so Richard, in Source, in the first sort of 4 or 5 years, what was viewership like in that game? I'm guessing it was bad, right?
Well, actually, what a lot of people don't realize was we actually started out pretty strong. 2005 was a great year for Source, just in terms of events that it had. Like WCG Singapore, they picked it up straight away.
Yeah.
Much to the chagrin of all the 1.6 players, and it wasn't ready.
Is that the one that
right.
won? They came over. And
Yeah. Then it was great, right? But no, I mean, I think even they fucking said though, like this game sucks because it wasn't even ready competitively. It had been released like to get a 2004 account, like what mine was. That was like an early access type thing. That was what was released in the Steam cafes, LAN cafe. Sorry, on Steam. It was like a 2004 September account, and then I think it went on for general release in 2005. But CPL had a CSS tournament. It was CPL Summer 2005.
Yep.
I remember watching it. It was Powers Gaming that won it. They were playing against a team called Upper. And I remember all of the guys that was on a pub server with. We all fucking jumped on a TeamSpeak and watched it together. That was like a great memory. So viewership overall, I don't know, but it actually wasn't a million miles away from 1.6 in 2005 because people were curious. People wanted to see what the fuss was about.
And there ended up being a lot of hate, but all us 1.6ers were hoping that was our new game, that was a new engine upgrade. We're all moving forward. It just dropped in. Again, just like CSGO dropped, and we all went, "Whoa, this is like Source all over again,"
This is one of the great myths
we were excited
about
it, but it just didn't work.
Exactly. That's one of the great myths about 1.6, that everyone who was playing 1.6 was super satisfied and thought, this game's great. People used to complain about 1.6 all the time. In fact, if you talk to any genuine Counter-Strike aficionado, which version is better is either 1.3 or 1.5. That's the debate, not 1.6.
I love 5.2, but it's too early.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
We had bugs in our game forever that Valve didn't give me. Fucking nuke flash bug, lose 3 rounds because you flashed under a box. Too bad, so sad. What? How does that happen?
Yeah. That's what I mean. So people you know, people talking about 1.6 being this like godlike, untouchable game with no flaws. They didn't think that at the time. That was something that came out, and the reason that became the sort of established fact was because of how bad Source was.
Yeah,
really underperformed. There was a bunch of stuff that didn't ingratiate it to the 1.6 community either. Like WCG were guilty of that. They made people play like 1.6 for the qualifiers, but by the way, the finals are going to be Source.
Yeah.
I mean, how the fuck do you even do that? Like that, you're going to play a different game on a different fucking engine, but you qualified, you know, crazy shit. So there was lots of stuff going on, but initially the viewership was good. By 2006, it takes a dip. People aren't really interested. I don't even think CPL picked it up for their 2006 season. And this is why the emergence of CGS was important, because CGS comes out in 2006. That's the Championship Gaming Series, for those who've never heard about it. And what they did was they threw Source ultimately a lifeline in terms of viewership and in terms of stature, because it was an opportunity to hit those CPL-esque heights that we hadn't really scaled. 1.6 viewership in 2006 was killing Source hands down, and it had this huge tour and this huge infrastructure there that Source didn't. Source really had pretty much small events. We weren't even regularly playing each other Europe to UK, or let alone America to Europe. The CS world, the Source world, was still very, very big, because organizations didn't salary the teams a lot of the time. We weren't paying vast amounts of money to get teams to go to tournaments, and the financial returns weren't all that great. I mean, to put it in perspective, the biggest Source event in 2006 in the UK, certainly, and probably is in Europe as well, was I-30. That's Multiplay's I-30, which was at Newbury Racecourse. Now, why is it so big, you might ask? Well, it had a regular CSS tournament, which got 128 teams in attendance. In fact, teams had to be turned away. How the times have changed. But also, it had the eBuyer tournament there as well. Now, the eBuyer tournament was the winner of this team for a whole year becomes Team eBuyer. You get I don't even think you got salaried, but it was like you were the eBuyer brand. They would send you to every Source event in Europe, and you won a top-of-the-range PC, which they were obligated to upgrade should it fall behind technologically over the course of the year. That was it. And people went mad for that. People were like, what? I can be in an org that'll get sent to every Source event in Europe and have a top-of-the-range PC? Fuck it, I'll sign up.
Sign me up.
And a lot of the organizations that were supporting Source at the time really looked on that tournament as derisory, because obviously if you went to the team and they won, they left your org. So what was the point?
Yeah.
So and CGS was exactly the same, by the way. So there wasn't a lot of support for Source, and it didn't have a lot of interest in terms of viewers. Players were really still looking at like, what can we do that's best for us? How can we make Source more like 1.6? And a lot of the traditional 1.6 events pushed Source away, predicated on the failures of WCG 2005 and other various factors that were going on.
So one thing that will actually also shock people from the modern day is that when they see now, okay, I'm gonna have to frame this two ways, okay? So right now, if I say that a major in CSGO is worth $250,000 in terms of the prize pool, what's funny is now people will be like, well, that's shit, isn't it? Because it should be 4 million because Dota. But 2 years ago, that was like, oh my God, imagine 250K for a CSGO tournament. So actually what's funny is that we've come through that and gone through the other side again to it being shit again. But that was amazing. The idea that you could have 250K prize salary total for the whole LAN. But what's amazing is, people don't know this, but back in the early days I was talking about at the beginning with Scott there, we're talking 2001 onwards, there would be CPL events, 2 per year, where the prize purse was $200,000 for the total event, or 250K. And what's funny is actually they had a less top-heavy prize purse payout than we do now. Like, for example, some of those events, you only got 30,000 of the 200K first place, but they'd pay, like, the team that came, like, 32nd, like $800 or something like that, which seemed like a waste of money at the time. Like, why are you throwing all that to all the scrubs down there when the best players not getting that much, So the reason why I want to bring this up though, Scott, is at the time, people will think, oh, well, how could it have the same money as it has now, logically. But what's funny is there's actually a through line, I think, to this, which is that part of the reason my theory as to why they had so much money in the early days is that nearly every businessman I ever met in esports for like the first 6 years or something was, if not an absolute just criminal hiding in plain sight, then at least had something a bit dodgy about themselves. Like maybe they had a bit of the talk, a bit of the gab, but like they probably had failed in some other business or, basically think of it this way, Scott. If you were someone with really good business skills who had experience, etc., it's very unlikely you would have been in Counter-Strike esports at the time, putting on events or something. It just wouldn't really happen, would it? I mean, the old joke back then was Angel Munoz didn't really run the CPL and didn't really have a sport that he was building. He was a guy who was an investment banker who figured out a clever scam, which is that if you run these events, someone will give you $500,000 for a year, which you then sit in your account and maybe even invest in stuff and you make money from, and then you give the money to people at the end. And it's like you just made interest and got to use the money as liquid assets for a year, which is why you might not pay someone one day. And so what's genius is that's almost like, the old joke, Scott, that supposedly L. Ron Hubbard, I think it's apocryphal, but there's a joke that people say that L. Ron Hubbard, before he started Scientology, actually was having a conversation with like some of his buddies who were writing fiction novels. And supposedly he said to one of them, oh, the ultimate scam would be to start your own religion, because you'd make all this money. It's almost like Angel Munoz. You could imagine him doing that like in 1995 or something. Like, I know all the stuff about investment banking. And so, if I was to just start an organization, like let's say games, they're the hot new thing, and if I just got a company to give me like $300,000 for 6 months and I don't have to give it to anyone else, then I wait. What I do is I make the gamers wait another 3 months before I pay it to them. I've got all this money that I can use for a short period and then I give it away, and I'm basically printing free money. So the point I'm getting to here is, really, when I see those big numbers, even at the time, as it went to shit, it made sense that it went to shit, Scott, because it was like, there's no way they got that much money, like legitimately. Like gaming wasn't as big as they were selling it to be. And isn't that kind of how they got the money?
Yeah, I think it's it speaks a little bit to the kind of the sponsored event business at its core, right? This happens to be the event business around kids playing video games, right? There's a huge margin for profit to throw events potentially, and we could, whether it's a rock concert or a trade show, of all sorts of things, right? Because of exactly what you said. I put together a package as cheaply as I can logistically, but I go to all these sponsors and sell it to them for as much as I can make, right? For the exposure, for all those things that Angel sells or ESL sells. Now, obviously, it's much easier to sell even more nowadays because obviously the eyeballs are here. So the cheaper I can do the event, the more I can skim off everything, the longer I can hold on to the money, like you're saying, the sooner I can get it from Intel, and the longer I can hold on to it till I have to give it to the kid who won it. That's free money for me, basically, as a business. So it's not just like the business of throwing tournaments, but it leans towards that as well, right? It could be a skateboard tournament. It could be a snowboard tournament. Same kind of concept. Gather a shitload of money, sit on it for a very long time, and then quickly dispense as little of it as possible, right? And I'm looking at some figures real quick. In 2006, this is esports earning, right? Which is missing some stuff, but pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
To give you an idea of scope or lack of change, Counter-Strike, #1 game in 2006, $1.6 million in prize money, right? 2014, Counter-Strike, 1.9 million. Can't say 2015 yet because it's obviously still happening. So really, and obviously in between, certainly a big dip, but like the prize money is certainly, like you're saying, maybe not grown enough. And I think the international is such an anomaly with the crowdfunding. Nobody can kind of compare that and say, well, that's what a final should be worth because it's crowdfunded final right now. If you crowdfund it for Counter-Strike, I guess we could see what we would think it'd be worth. So I think, again, it goes back to, like you said, yes, back in the day, it was kind of a cash grab for, not for everybody, but for, I think, a lot of companies trying to sell this young demographic, right? Because it is the elusive demographic. That's what's always been sold around esports. And it's not me, I'm too old, right? But this young male, 14 to 22-ish demographic is what every advertiser on the planet wants to sell to, right? Unless you're, selling shit to me like adult diapers. But, it is coveted. And it's even coveted more so now because we don't watch TV anymore. We gather everything right here in front of us. We consume right here. And no different. It's the same dream Angel sold Everyone is still selling. It's just a lot more people care about it, right? And I think you kind of touch on a point, like the only people who were here were kind of the shady people here because they were kind of the only ones that could make money. And you're kind of right, because for what they were doing, the investment they were properly doing, they were overspending, right? If you wanted to come in for the longevity and the carrying of the sport, you spread this money out even more, right? You do it even different. You do it differently.
Put it this way, Scott. Let me ask you this, because another detail, just to add in some of your background. So, okay, you did all this stuff, then you were working at Gotfrag, but obviously the latter half of your career was actually in management, working for teams. So you actually have intimate knowledge of like what the deliverables are. Because you've worked outside of esports as well, what is reasonable for what amount of sponsorship, what you should give to the person. Like nowadays, I sometimes actually feel bad when I hear how much money you can make it because it's blowing up for what seems like not that much to me. But then I remember back then, they must have been getting almost nothing for thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, that's where the guys like Angel and everybody else made even more money, and team owners, right? Because the biggest commodity, the reason we're all here is the players, right? I'm a very player-centric guy, which gets me in trouble often, but without them, we have nothing. We have no sport. We have nothing to watch. We have no entertainment value. And while they have the better end of the short stick now, they still have the short stick. And even then, they certainly got the short stick. Same kind of concept that you talk about when it comes to tournament organizations. A team organization does the same thing. Gets as much money as possible for the brand and spends as little as possible on and for the brand, which means you pay your players at least as much as possible or not at all. You put them 4 to 5 to a room if you can. A lot of these things are gone now, right? But back then, you jam into a hotel room or 2 hotel rooms. They're traveling already for travel, right? They're not on salary. Again, salaries came eventually to some teams, but for a long time, a lot of really good Counter-Strikers were playing for mouse pads, maybe a box, a CPU, a unit, a monitor maybe, and travel money, right, and accommodations. So the money has always been, and again, the international and 16-year-old kid winning 1.6 is such an anomaly in our world that it needs to be really stressed that the players do not make that kind of money, right? They're still the bottom of this food chain, and the people up top, the suits, if you will, are still making the lion's share of our sports money, right? And I think now it's maybe even worse because that top share has gotten stupidly not rich, but the potential, right? The money is there, is being spent, but it's not necessarily being spent on players. I don't know, again, if I answered really your question.
So you don't have to get to the specifics, Scott. We're getting roughly around the right area. I think we're in the ambience is correct here. Okay, so let me actually clarify out what I said initially. Okay, so when I said it that way, basically, here's the better way to define it. I've been thinking a bit when you're talking there. It's not that everyone involved was like an absolute con man. It's more like when I set the base there that like, what are the odds that some brilliant entrepreneur or some genius who's already worked in all these other fields of business in his prime would be working in esports in the first 5 or 6 years? Very unlikely, because, the game, there wasn't the money to make off it if you actually knew the real stuff. So essentially you almost had to be a liar to be successful in that sense, because you're going to have to sell someone on a dream that is just a dream. If they ever get to if they ever really find out that actually 5,000 people watched this CPL final and you got them to give you $250K, the jig's up, right? It's over at that point. You have to make it seem like 50,000 people watched, and they watched from 200 countries, and we had interest from Russia, which just means like a guy from Russia put it on his website. Whatever the joke is. No, it's like you're actually purposely trying to keep them away from the real analytics, which now obviously is what we sell the industry on. So it's not true, okay, that everyone was a comment. It's more like this. Let's say there's 3 types of person who could have been involved. There's the really successful native businessman. He didn't exist, ago. There's no way that guy was involved. So then the 2 people that are left, Scott, is either the used car salesman who figures out that this is a better gig than selling used cars, or like just televisions in a Dallas showroom or something, and he does esports instead and uses what skills he has there to be a superstar because there's no one else in the field. Or the other guy, who I will admit is there, that isn't, I don't blame at all, okay, Scott, is there's the guy who actually doesn't make money because he's the true believer. There were some of those. There's the guy who actually is going to lose all his money and is probably going to ruin his whole life because he really thinks this is the new sport and he's really in for that reason here. So I want to clarify it in that sense.
Yeah, I think to your point, back then, any sort of suit that rolled in that was legitimate and upstanding would have ran because it wasn't worth his time, right? Any legitimate type businessman that wasn't endemic, that wasn't a hardcore, passionate adult like me, let's say, would have ran from the scene. And the money people that did come were the predator types, were the scammy types, right? Or it was the homegrown types that just were already in it and went, what kind of business? Like, we started Got Frag, we weren't scammy types, but we did turn it into a successful business, right? The endemic type. But back then, I think you're absolutely right. Any outsider that looked at it and went, oh, esports, I should invest in this, was a used car salesman type for sure. Because he had to be full of bullshit, he had to eat bullshit, and he had to sell bullshit, right? Because that's all that was there. Now you have the fan base to back up, the sell.
I mean, to bring Richard in here, what's funny is this actually, when we're talking about this exact topic, reminds me of how silly it is, I think, when everyone's still, obviously we get this all the time about how we're like unprofessional or we have like an axe to grind with people. Because it's the same logic, right, Richard? Anyone who in our day, early on, came into being an esports journalist, etc., wasn't going to be someone who was like, right, well, I've been a grade A student, I'm all buttoned down, like I've prepared my whole life to be an esports journalist now, I'm just really about, I only want to do this excellent work and I know 10 years from now I'll probably make money and that's okay with me. You got to be a bit, it's like that. People now, essentially, if I could translate what they're really trying to say, it's almost like, guys, stop praising these esports journalists. They're really flawed people. It's like, yeah, well, why the fuck else would we be here, mate? We had to have something wrong with us. Yeah. Now listen, maybe we've worked through some of that shit, but there must be something wrong with us that we're still here now. Because I know people who were as good as me, better than me, who came into the scene and had more experience and more knowledge. Guess why they're not here now? Because they went and got a real fucking job. They're writing for a newspaper somewhere, or they got, in gaming they got a better job. They went and wrote for some, like, the equivalent of whatever GameSpot was, their PC Gamer or something. The only people left over, there's got to be something a bit off for you in the early days, because the stuff wasn't there. The numbers weren't there for anyone. So to tie this in, Richard, in this sense, what do you think about this kind of like the industry aspect I'm basically talking about just before like the modern day?
Yeah, well, I mean, so first of all, you're absolutely right. I make no bones about it. I always say that the reason I'm here is that I do have like a fucking disease. It's got to be. It's like an alcoholism or something, because, there's no, like, when like you're a fucking alcoholic, like an actual full-blown alcoholic, not like, I like to drink. I like to party. I'm talking about a fucking full-blown,
like literally leaving Las Vegas, like.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I can't function without a fucking drink, alcoholic, right? Well, the problem with being that guy is, like, you'll find a lot of fucking people who just aren't sympathetic to that position. Like, you can have one. No, they can't have one. Yeah. That's the fucking point. It never stops at one. They get one drop of the fucking brown goodness, and that's it. They're off on a fucking week-long bender. They fucking smashed the kid's piggy bank, took the money out. They've remortgaged the house without telling their wife. They got fucking problems. And esports was my fucking problem. I turned down a bunch of good jobs to stay here. I don't know why the fuck I did that. And the problem was, I knew if at any point I could just go cold fucking turkey and not be involved in it, I'd have a rough 3 months where I'd be, without purpose and directionless. But this is the thing, I couldn't do it because, first of all, the people I'd met, right, I genuinely cared about the people. Considered them friends, Like, I grew up in a fucking rough neighborhood. A lot of my friends, they were either already away by this point, because I'm in my early to mid-20s, right? So they're either in prison, or they're in the army, or they're dead. I mean, they're the three options. I haven't got any friends. Not real friends, I went to university. What did I do when I went to university? I hunted out the bad crowd anyway, and was part of that. I fucking dealt drugs to pay for my university education. So... you're right, I'm not a fucking regular guy. I'm not a button-down guy. But I always wanted to be a fucking journalist, and I had offers, man. Like, I swear, I had, like, offers to go and do a real thing. But I thought, if I go, and I'm not writing about all this shady shit which was emerging, like what you guys are talking about now, my baptism of fire when I knew I couldn't leave, I had to stay, because if I didn't, then we'd all, no one was going to look after the source players, at least. Was 2006, right? We got a death of CPL, and Angel Munoz, the appropriately named godfather of gaming, appropriately named because the guy was a fucking crook, not because he did anything great, not because he cared about the kids. And CGS coming in, and I drank that fucking Kool-Aid. As you know, I mean, Dunk, fuck, you were there. You've told the stories about envelopes of cash literally being offered to journalists. That was happening. And I thought, well, okay, look, man, 1.6 maybe had its time. CPL is dying. This could be the turning of the tide. And if I stay here and say the right things and sell my fucking self out just a little, just that much, all of the kids that I came up with, all of the guys that I met on that public server like 2 fucking years ago, whatever it was, I can see them right and steer them into jobs. It was only on that job that I realized that was a really naive and fucked up idea. So yeah, I mean, you know, I probably should have left a million times over. Scott's right. There was no money. There was no return. It made no sense. Not for a guy of my age. I had to put my entire career on hold, relationships on hold, real life shit on hold. But equally, you know, I got involved in a scene where people deferred to me. You know, people were like, Richard, what should we do? People came to me for advice. People respected my opinion. I could write an article about something and people took it seriously. I could change things. Now, I can't say that about real life. Even now, right? Yeah. In 2015, I can't say that. I can't say that I can go on the internet and voice an opinion and that dark part of the world that I want eradicated or I want to shine some light on, it alters. I don't have that power. I'll never. But in esports, I do. And in CSS, which was all I really cared about at the time, esports-wise, I did. And that's why I stayed. And that's not just because it tapped into my fucking ego, because obviously it did. We've all got egos. But because, as I said, I justified all the bad decisions I made because I cared about the people that were in the scene. If I hadn't made a single friend in esports, like, it would have been easy to leave. It would have been so easy, because, like, where's the payday? The shit I had to do, I mean, fuck. The dicks I could have sucked and got paid, shit, man.
That should be the name of your esports book, Rich. The dicks I could have
sucked. I wish they were here now. Like, I'd fucking go at them like a circus
by Joe.
But back then, all I really cared about was, like, you know, the right thing and what was good for Source players. And, man, Source players have been marginalized and spat upon, and, you know, it was unreal. And just here's something you'll appreciate, Duncan. It's a quick analogy. Scoots, right? I always, because I barely knew this motherfucker back then, and when we did first meet, we didn't even hit it off anyway.
No,
I called him some Gotfrag sellout motherfucker or something. I don't even remember. Okay. But anyway, this guy, I was talking about this the other day. He is the fucking Duff McKagan of esports. Now, for those that don't know, Duff McKagan was... Yeah, no, I'll tell you exactly why. So Duff McKagan was the bassist in Guns N' Roses. He was the last original remaining member before, you know, apart from Axl Rose, obviously, because it's like one big vanity project now. But he was the guy who stuck around until the end. Now, he was a drunk and he was a drug addict and all the other good stuff. And yet it never fucked him up. He always managed to stay on an even keel. And then one day he realized, like, I'm gonna have to invest. There's gonna have to be a life outside of Guns N' Roses. So he took his $100,000, which I think was all he had liquid at the time, and he decided to invest it in, like, some small companies that were based in Seattle, where he was from, I think. And he never invested or anything before. You know, it was like uncharted territory for him. And he invested in a local coffee shop chain. He invested in a software company, and he invested in a website that sold books online. And they turned out to be Starbucks, Microsoft, and Amazon. And he made way more fucking money from that investment, which he made while fucked up on heroin, than anything he did in his career. I
can see why this is Scoots right now. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Now, what I love about Scott is Scott put in the fucking hard yards back in the day, and he invested his own money in things like Evil Geniuses, MLG, and Gotfrag, and that right there is why he deserves to be the only man that can be, you know, untainted by esports money to this day. You could argue he lucked out, or you could argue it's smart. Either way, though. So that's my point on that. Because Scott's right, man. Everyone in the fucking business was a fucking cowboy. I met a bunch of them. I meet a bunch of them now. I'm sick of meeting them.
If anything, we've got more. It's more of a Wild West because, again, the floodgates are off, you know. And I did get lucky, and I was also in a privileged position, being an older guy with a career, been a gamer all my life, but finding this world, you know, and I didn't need it for any sort of financial. Like, I had a good job that let me travel, I could go to events. Like it was perfect for me. I could game. And then I just happened to get involved in some projects that ended up also not at their core ever thinking how they would end, being sold to companies, right? So I'm also an anomaly, much like young little Samael is. But same kind of thing, like, because I've been through these dark days too, like going, why am I investing? Why am I watching this? Why am I on these forums? Why do I care? Because at that point, you're not going, well, it's paying my bills. I got to fucking eat the fucking shit. Like, so I had lots of those late nights going, what the fuck? Over here in this world, I do all this cool shit. And this fucking 14-year-old kid is saying what to me? And this is long before I'm hosting Counter-Strike or anything, like years ago. I got Friday. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I putting together these productions for you? What? Fuck you, kid. You know? So, but we're all, it's like the circus, Richard. It's like we've all joined this fucking circus. We've had a screw loose. And some of us have good screws loose. And then you've got the fucking psychopath guy that runs the fucking fat lady tent, right?
That's a great analogy, right?
It's a good
there.
one,
like,
yeah.
Because, seriously, let's look at what I was doing in my fucking mid-20s, right? Like, I'd got my fucking early 20s even. I got my fucking first management job, right? I mean, like, after I left university, same shit, man. I thought like, hey, you know, I edited a magazine at uni. Like, I'm going to be a fucking serious journalist now. Bullshit like that. Everyone was saying to me, you got to move to London. I'm like, fuck London. I'll go back up north, and I'll be fucking fine. I'll get a fucking job, no problems. You watch. And of course I didn't. I was in some shitty fucking call center, climbing the walls, literally just fantasizing about murdering all of my co-workers every fucking day, and everyone I ever fucking spoke to hated that job. Destroyed my fucking soul. Worked my way up. Got my first ever sweet management job, and was making great fucking money. Like, great money, you know, like, unbelievable amounts of money. Like, take your friends out every weekend for drinks and cocaine every weekend money. It was sick. But I had this other thing where I'd be like, oh, guys, just 1 minute. Yeah. No, it's all good. CPL's folded. Like, it was like this fucking alternate life. And my real life was way better than my alternate life. I do not know why it fucking pulled me in.
So you were just the shittest superhero ever, Rich. You actually had the ultimate... Your fake identity was awesome, mate. You should have stuck with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if Clark Kent was just fucking straight balling and Superman, like, his fucking superpower was, I don't know, diarrhea. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? But that's what I did. That's literally what I did. I traded in because it was the bullshit, man. It was like, you know, the real life bullshit, like the things you had to do to get that money, and none of it was good, right? Like, none of it made me feel good. Like, changing things in esports for young guys, it did. It wasn't like entirely altruistic, but it gave me a buzz, man. Like, you know, first time some kids like, oh, this guy owes me money, and I write them a fucking threatening letter. Good stuff. And in fact, even on like the small levels, there was a player called Damage 7. Damage 7. He was a public player, and he went on Prize Fight. Do you remember Prize Fight, where you used to play Counter-Strike for money? But it was like public, and whoever finished top of the rankings won cash. And you had to put your own money in, but you won it. Blah blah blah. Anyway, they banned him, and the only thing they did was a demo review. And I can't even remember the name of the cheat coder. It was like a well-known cheat coder at the time, and what he used to do was review the demos and say he's cheating. And this guy didn't cheat; he was shit most of the time. But he'd had some games of his fucking life on this thing. And I wrote to Prize Fight saying this needs to get fucking sorted. You need to unban my fucking friend and da 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 da. And they unbanned him, and he got his money. And it was fuck all. It was like £50 or something. Yeah. That was a buzz, man. Like, I got that guy 50 quid. And understand as well, by like in real life as well, I was acting as a shop steward. I guess the only thing that really kept me in the mainstream job while I was overlapping with esports was I was like a union representative shop steward. So anyone had a problem internally, they came to me, and I'd be like, right, this is bullshit. Let's all have a meeting. And I stopped people getting fired. That was the juice. That's what I enjoyed, like doing that for other people. And again, I don't know if it was like altruistic, just 'cause I'm a nice guy, or because it gives you like some fevered messiah complex.
Well, I think
like,
you made the point about,
love me.
You made the point about ego, right? And are we here because of a little bit of ego? And I think in some regard, there's nothing wrong with a healthy ego, so especially if you're any sort of personal public figure, in the sense that you're in the public eye. And I certainly, for myself, would say that, I'm a fan of the games I love in esports. I don't love all esports. There's esports I don't watch, but of the ones I like, I've always been a fan of them. So I come as a fan anyway, right? But I think when we get to various positions and we're actually, for lack of a better word, somebody in the industry, and you have a little bit of a voice, whether you have haters and lovers, like if you have that power or that ability to affect change, and again, I was able to with Gotfrag and stuff like that, and no one knows how to show Counter-Strike, no one knows how to produce videos, we'll just do it ourselves, right? So like that's also, I think, what has us all stuck around. We're not just guys sitting watching and typing our opinions on a match. Like we've somehow been, powerful isn't the right word, but like, and that is you get that back as an ego stroke in some regards, right? Scoots, man, love what you did. Great broadcast. Like that kind of, especially back then when you weren't getting a lot of money for it, that does help you sleep a little better.
It's not power as much as it's like agency. It's the idea that you can actually do something. You can affect the world. Like a fan who sits there and wishes they could do something. We in a way can. We can like reach into the screen and do something. Like we can say something that the player who's playing right now responds to, you know. That's kind of crazy, right? Especially if you were a fan.
Yeah, because again, it's like being that super fan, right? But in some regards, we're not fans at all, right? Obviously. But, and I think that definitely, I think if I was I guess the way to put it, if I was a nobody from day one and I was just a fan of Counter-Strike, like my history was different, obviously I wouldn't, if I was here, it would be in a totally different way, right? So all our history is intertwined with us actively being involved in our communities and obviously being shit on by communities. I mean, right? I mean, I saw CSGO turn on me last year, which is fine. You know, I picked that fight, so be it. But again, I think it all goes back to us being a little off. You know,
I actually thought you had a good analogy there. Like you touched on two there, Scott, that I think are the best way for someone who never was around in the early days to frame people in esports and in the esports industry for the first like 8 years. There's two that you touched on. One very briefly though. One was like the circus. So think of it this way: the whole thing about the circus, okay, is the notion that, like, to a naive outsider who doesn't know what like the history of the circus is, they think it's just people who are like really good at doing trapeze work and shit like that. No, it's the opposite way. What happens is there's such fucked up people that have run away or alcoholics or are deviants or are like refugees that they have to learn to be fucking amazing at walking along a tightrope or putting their head in a lion's mouth, because that's their only place they can live in society, sort of with the other freaks. They don't grow up and go, oh, I want to grow up and be really good at this. So anyone who has like a skill in esports in a weird way had some fucked up aspect like that, you're going away. So that's why the other one you touched on, okay, you only mentioned briefly, was where you said that esports is like the Wild West. Well, anyone again who knows about the history of the Wild West in America, the notion of why a lot of people went to the West wasn't that it was like some cool cowboy place and all the stuff from movies. It's that it was the frontier. It was the place where you're almost in civilization, but you're not quite. And so you can kind of set your own rules. You can do what you want. Maybe you can be an entrepreneur. You can be a robber. You can try and be a baron or something. You can do all these things that you can't quite do in society, but it's not the same as going off by yourself and just dying off in the wilderness, you know. So esports was like that. If you were part of it, as shit as it was, you knew it was shit because that was, well, like I'm saying, you're in the Wild West, you know, there's nothing here. We've just arrived here now and everyone's trying to get their gold out the ground and fuck over this guy and double cross this guy. But then hopefully the dream is you're going to get out with all that money, which no one does. Anyone who's seen a good movie, mafia movie, you get Carlito'd, you know, that doesn't happen. So here's the question, alive, Scoots, you kind of inferred already that, well, what you think about it. But I was going to ask this, okay. So since I've set it up, that this money did exist there in the early days of esports, some of it even as much in Counter-Strike, but there was a lot of scumfucks, and in a way, maybe there needed to be scumbags to even get that money into esports. So naively, if I was around now, I'd go, but it must be different now, Scott, you know, now it must just be really great guys who are all good businessmen. And here, there are some, okay, there are actually people now where sometimes I have to stop myself and go, oh, wait a minute, actually he does have a business background, and he actually is making real money, and actually this business plan even seems to, Jesus Christ, I should probably just peel it back a bit, you know. But I have that like trigger when I first see him involved, like, who is this guy and what has he done and how can I find out as soon as possible? So here's my question, Scott. Is there actually an industry of people now who are just real businessmen and they're not shady and there's none of that stuff's gone? Do you think have we cured ourselves of the ills of the earlier industry? Of people exploiting people and just being in it for 3 years and they're going to be gone with all the money and we're still here? Like, where was that guy and all that? Have we really left that behind?
Curing it? No, absolutely not. I think in some regards, since the carrot's gotten bigger, maybe even more of the snake oil salesmen are in our midst and they've got bigger wallets, you know, and their level of con is bigger, or their moral compass of what them as a business ethically to run is skewed, right? And again, now Again, the eyeballs do make it possible for some legitimate businesses to make money, right? Let's not kid ourselves here. We have hit a different threshold of stuff, but I definitely think the carpetbaggers, to use an old school term, are coming calling huge, right? I mean, it's a field day out there for every. I mean, again, we know my stance on underage gambling. We don't have to discuss it, but for every gambling, betting, skin, fantasy site that might be legit and perfectly on the up and up, there's one or two that open for the sole purpose of ripping kids off their skids and money and then disappearing with it, right? So that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, right? All these things are in place that make other scams possible, other cons possible. And again, players now more than ever can get scammed because now their dream of being a pro is they watch it every day, right? It's even like the illusion of being a pro and getting the full ride is even bigger than ever, right? The ring is right there. So I can only imagine how many shady teams are firing up and giving shit contracts. Trig is a prime example of a shady fucking company burning Hearthstone players, and I'm sure they burned MC to the ground, but he's never going to tell us, right? So to answer your question, no, they're not gone. The Wild West is alive and well in esports, I think, unfortunately. But the positive of the Wild West is if you went forward with a positive, solid business plan, I'm going to go open hotel chains. I'm going to open this out there. Nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with taking advantage in that sense of a new frontier of business. But with it comes the guy selling you the fool's gold, Duncan, right? What
do you think, Richard? How many scumbags are there? Because in theory, this is your world, right? Dealing with these sorts of people.
He is the land of scumbags.
Scott's right on the money. First of all, I don't see capitalizing on a business opportunity as exploitation. I might be a goddamn stinking communist at heart, but not that much, people are entitled to take advantage of opportunities. What you can't do is take advantage of people. You can't fucking lie to people. You can't exploit their better nature. And this is a fundamental problem in esports. Take, for example, you bring up Trig. This is a company that, fortunately, they've not touched CS in a meaningful way, which is great. But this is a company that have come in. They said they're going to run 3 esports events in Dubai in a super stadium that they're going to build. They're going to run their own TV show called From Zero to Hero. It's going to be a reality show where gamers get fucking,
This is like a checklist of triggers for me and Scott right now, by the way. As you read this off, now it's like, no, none of that will happen.
You've heard this. Of course you have. We've all been there when this was done. And equally, they of course said they had a huge social network website, which later, of course, turned out to be bullshit. They've been investigated by both the German and Swedish appropriate financial authorities for stock market fraud. These guys are fucking scam artists, and this is the problem you've got, that there's this idea about speculating to accumulate, right, which is fine in principle, but when it gets into Wolf of Wall Street territory, where you just fucking come in and you promise someone the world and you exploit them, and what you're hoping for is that lie doesn't get exposed on a long enough timescale for somebody else to buy into the lie, and you get all this money coming in, and then you think, well, fuck it, now I've got enough to pay people off, and we can say it was a delay in the finances, we can make up some bullshit. This is what so many companies in esports are doing. They come in with the tiniest amount of capital. They think if we lie big and we make it look shiny, other people will buy in. We use that money to pay off the people we already owe, the people we could never pay from day one, and we just try and snowball it forward from there. And the problem with that is, it's like going to the fucking casino and you got a mortgage payment to make, and you got $50 in your pocket, and you think, fuck it, I'm just going to go on the roulette wheel. I'm going to put the $50 on black, and I'm going to bet black. And then if I win, I'm going to bet black again, and black again, and black again. And there's some guy out there that's done that, and it's worked for him. He's gone home to his wife, and he's thrown the money on the bed, and he's fucking screwed her all night long, and fuck paying this mortgage. I'm going to buy you a bigger house. It worked for him, that one dude. Everyone else just gets fucked. They just get fucked, because that's the law of averages, and that's the problem with the average esports scam. So to answer your question as to how many scumbags there are, you can't put an exact number on it, and you can't always tell who the scumbags are because there's like varying degrees. You got Trig, the out and out just liar scumbags. They lie to everybody in a bid to make money. And then you've got people that are a bit more cultured. You know, they're a bit more cultured with their lies. They're lying about their ability to expand. Actually, they don't have it. You know, they haven't got enough capital to expand, or they lie about sponsors that they have when they don't. They misrepresent sponsor as being a cash sponsor when in reality it's just a small hardware sponsorship or something. I mean, you would never know. It's just a logo on a website. It's what they represent to the players. You know, and again, Trig did this. Trig did this with the Hearthstone team. They said to them, like, oh, we're going to have a partnership with NIP. Biggest organization in Sweden. You'll be under their banner. Don't you worry. Sign these contracts. When the players had the chance to talk to management and that from NIP, representatives from NIP, they were like, we'd never partner with Trig. They're dodgy as fuck. We're from Sweden. Yeah. We know that. So you got people who sort of misrepresent, and again, that's like speculating to accumulate. Then you've got people who are well-intentioned, right? But they're still kind of scumbags because they're inept. That's what it boils down to. Like, the well-intentioned guy who fucks up and ruins your life is still kind of a scumbag. That needs to be said.
Yeah, unintentionally, perhaps. But
yeah, exactly. Being so inept at your job that you're like, no, I've got this. Look, I got this business plan in PowerPoint. It's going to be fine. Like, somebody who comes in, for example, and the whole liquidity, the whole cash flow of your business is predicated on sponsors paying you in a timely fashion. Well, that doesn't happen. So I know a number of gaming organizations right now that are ultimately having to rob Peter to fucking pay Paul because their entire business plan is sponsors paying on time. And it doesn't work like that.
And
maybe they should.
They don't pay on time.
Maybe they should, right? That's a separate argument. But the reality is, you got to have money in the fucking bank, right? You got to have a plan. Like, when we had real jobs before this shit, right? If our employer had ever said, the thing is, I can't pay you this month. Because it's complicated, but basically geopolitics means that there's this gas pipeline that's going through here, and it means there's been an increase in the prices. Just some crazy shit, right? You'd be like, fuck you, fucking pay me. Pay me. I'll get a fucking lawyer. You're going to fucking pay me. I got to put food in my kids' mouths. I got to fucking pay the rent. Pay me. I don't fuck. So does that. So the inept fool is just as much of a scumbag as the guy, like in real terms, is the guy that started out to fuck you from the beginning. And this is the other crazy shit that nobody even talks about. You've got successful scumbags. Successful scumbags. The guy that looked out, that guy I'm talking about, who always bet on black and looked out, there's a bunch of those in esports too. They shouldn't be where they are. It makes no sense that they're where they are, but they got lucky. But they've still got that black heart, you know. They'll still run game on someone. They don't need to, but they'll still do it. They'll still tell lies. So you've got to be super skeptical about all dealings in esports. Doesn't matter what their background is. Like, you know, you're talking about business backgrounds. Well, good for you. You got one. But this is esports. That shit don't fly here, because this ain't market forces. This isn't. None of it makes any sense. You can have the best idea in the world and fall on your ass. You can be 2 years ahead of the curve and fail ultimately. You can be the guy who's got the genius idea, but the scene ain't ready for it. Equally, you can be the guy coming late to the party. You can be the guy that doesn't even have as good a product, and you can win. It's like, think about Betamax and VHS, right? This is the ultimate esports analogy. Betamax had the fucking best technology. It should have been the more successful brand. You know, initially it was cheaper. Well, it was slightly more expensive, but about the same as VHS. VHS made something that was shitty, substandard. It broke all the time. Blah, 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 blah. You know, and they just kept cutting the price. And yet VHS is what wins that battle. Yep. That's sometimes what happens in esports. So none of it makes any sense. And being a businessman doesn't necessarily translate. You have to understand esports, which is its own unique fucking maelstrom of chaos. Yeah. So, you know, for me...
I think the added popularity is certainly, and obviously eyeballs and natural press all around the world is certainly bringing more of all kinds to us. Good businessmen with ideas that might or might not work, and certainly... shady bastards for sure.
Well, now we're getting a different kind of scumbag, and this is the reality. And you know, I don't mind saying it. I'm one of the few guys who'll probably say it. I mean, you definitely, Scott. I don't know about Dunk, can't vouch for him on this topic, but now we've got the corporate scumbag. Now the corporations are here.
Oh, yeah.
Corporations don't give a fuck about anything except the bottom line. They can pretend otherwise. Like, the corporation, I've always said it, a corporation is basically the business manifestation of, like, psychopathy in the human persona. It's just all about the bottom line. The ends will always justify the means to a corporation. And they're here in esports now, you know? I'm hearing all of these stories about these big corporations that have bought esports properties and like what they're telling their staff and what their priorities are. And then you think about something, for example, like Twitch, which has been bought by Amazon. And like Twitch obviously is like, hey, we wear purple. We're your friendly community guys. We're the guys that basically helped give esports this second win, take it into this new golden age. You're owned by fucking Amazon now. Like, I mean, how long is it before things change? And that's the next thing, where egregious application of rules are going to be applied, corporate standards are going to be applied. This is going to be completely new scumbag territory, because it's going to be the scumbag you can't fight, that you can't disgrace. They're going to be too financially powerful, too big. They're going to be too well established at being scumbags in other areas of life. Esports will not have a chance. If they want to flex their muscles and flex their bank balance, there's not going to be one person that's going to be able to stand up to them. That's what's terrifying me about this new era of esports, that the scumbags are going to be too big to fail.
I mean, Scott, Richard kind of touched on it before. You are someone who, at different points in esports history, it sounds, unfortunately now there's a stigma if you say you cashed out of a business, but in a way you did. You got to a point where the business has reached a peak point where they were sold off, and you got a buyout essentially. You got a percentage of that. How do you get rich in esports without being a scumbag, Scoots?
Man, I don't think. I mean, I got lucky. I got so freaking lucky twice, right? I don't know if you can get rich in esports yet and not be, well, again, it depends on where you want to put your moral compass. Like, I'm not a big fan of the underage gambling, right? But there's huge money to be made in these raffle and gambling sites. Is that scumbaggy? Is it not? You're not ripping a kid off, but you're preying on a moral gray area. So that's certainly a way. I think, because I know how many businesses are there in esports. You can run a team. You can run an event organization that throws the events. You can work directly for a sponsor, or you can be in the media. We absolutely know what you all do is not an easy way to make money. If anything, you won't make money. You guys have ascended past just writing and coverage to make your money. So that's not an avenue of like forward growth for financial. So again, I don't know how little Johnny opens his lemonade stand anymore, right? In that sense, I guess if you had a little bit of capital and had a dream of having an esport brand, you probably could fire a team up. But man, they fail a lot. It's a sponsorship based model. There's only so many sponsors out there they're already supporting. So like, I think unfortunately, like, not to doom and gloom like Richard, I think we're now to the point where the only people that are going to make real money in esports are the ones that already have real money. And they're going to come in and buy and own, or people that own stuff. Like I got lucky and Godfrey got bought, and EG got bought, or Good Game Agency got bought. So I guess if you're a team owner right now and you did your hard work, you might get a payday. And there's definitely paychecks to be had out there, but get rich. I think
that's the next thing. Actually,
I think Mark Cuban's coming to get rich on esports, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
If any of us are gonna, in that sense.
Yeah,
right?
And that's the next thing actually. I don't think anyone's gonna make real money, like be comfortable for the rest of your life money. All the streaming properties are getting bought out. I mean, it's just how that is. But team ownership, if you actually own a successful team brand, eventually the corporation's gonna want to own those brands. Like it's gonna be like a NFL franchise model, or maybe not even like that. Like more like you lease a franchise from the league. You bid
or
for
you
it,
look at like what Red Bull is doing with some athletes. I mean, because if you have the marketing wherewithal within your own company, there is zero reason for you to pay the marketing of a team, because that's what a team is. They market for you, and their tools are players and merchandise around your brand. So if you could build all that in your own world, why doesn't Coca-Cola have their own esports department? Red Bull does. I could see, and again, Alex is my buddy, but I could see that pure business model of we are a team. Give us money to put our logos on, being like I Buy Power. Like I could see a lot more of it. Acer, going direct, because why give it away when you can market it yourself?
Yep.
Or like you said, under some sort of league structure where there's 12 owners. Well, who's going to own those 12 teams? It's going to be Amazon. It's going to be Google. It's going to be Intel. Right? So
and of course, the other thing that I'm missing out, which is staring us all in the face, is agencies, fake agencies. Steve Ardenset from he has the Liquid agency. Like, obviously there's GGA. I mean, these aren't really agencies. No agencies as I understand them. These are very different entities, but
they serve too many purposes to be what a pure agent should be, right? There's too much conflict of interest there, and I think a lot of them are breaking some legal ease in where they are for being agents, right? That was a big story. I don't think some of that is malicious. Like, I don't think they intentionally wanted to act as agents.
No.
It's the concept that if you were in Hollywood, and you had an agent and you were a talented actor, the agent wouldn't also be owned by the movie studio, which would then be the one that hires you for the movie. Because then, unsurprisingly, he's not going to tell you about parts from another movie studio or fuck over the guy who's actually his boss, So that wouldn't make any sense, would it? No one would hire that agent.
It's two issues. It's conflict of interest over, like, the best negotiation for two people in the room, and the legality of what an agent is in certain states, and I don't know if it's the rest of the world too, that people are calling themselves agents, when in reality there's a legal term and a legality of being an agent, much like a doctor or a lawyer. You can't just say I'm a doctor, right? So, but yeah, I think it's always, again, it's been that nature of agents cost money, and they make their money off a slice of their deals. And so until there's enough slices of deals for agents to have salaries, at least make it worthwhile, which we're seeing, right? We have agents slowly creeping in, but we've also had agents that have ripped people off, or people that pretend to be agents that rip people off. So, but I've always, and again, I'm an EG guy too, right? That there is a conflict of interest when you own a player rights, you own your own brand rights. Like, who are you negotiating for over who? Someone needs to walk in and talk just for the player, right? Simple as that, and the team. Again, much like real sports, right? You have an agent. An actor has an agent. Athletes have agents. And their sole job is to watch out for me, because this is shit I know nothing about, because I'm just a player, bro. I don't know shit about contracts. I don't want to get fucked. So I'm going to give you 15% or whatever it happens to be of everything you do for me, bro. Don't fuck me. Don't get me fucked. And now the team owns all those circles. Bad. It's bad. There also needs to be a player association to go on that angle as well, right?
Man, I'll tell you this, right? Like, and I don't mind. Like, this will obviously go out, right? But like, I've written a letter, an open letter. I'm gonna send. I was gonna send it to every player, like saying we've got to do something, because it's really starting to fucking make my ulcer go into overdrive watching how these players are getting screwed time and time again. The value they bring to the orgs, and the value the orgs bring to the esports tournament organizers that have those orgs at their events, which give them legitimacy, it's not being reflected in what the players are getting.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
And you can't have all these crazy unwritten rules. You can't have individual endorsement deals. Like, your sponsors are the team sponsors, but you get none of that sponsor money.
So Richard, I'll give you a specific example here. You don't have to speak to this example, but just to kind of frame this for people who are Counter-Strike fans who know what this is about. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I actually, the public has a totally different consensus opinion on Hiko, Spencer Martin, the former Cloud9 player, than I do. Because here's what people don't realize, okay? The public thinks Hiko is this asshole guy who, who does he think he is? He thinks he's like better than these other players, and he won't just join a team that's good for the next month, He wants to only join a team if it's like this good and on these terms, and if he can have these individual sponsors, and if he gets this amount right now. And what they don't realize is they're like, the gall of this person, how dare he think that? But what they don't realize is, I'll give you an analogy from sports that I'll tie in directly, okay? So in the NBA, people do the same thing, right? People say Kobe Bryant, who gets paid the most money in the NBA, he's an old, washed-up player now. He shouldn't be getting the most money because, he's not the best player anymore. And who does he think he is, like, on his team, demanding that he get the most money, when if he gave up a bit of money, they could get some better players for his team? And what no fan in the NBA understands is that if Kobe Bryant gets paid $30 million, he is being massively underpaid because that is the salary cap. He brings the Los Angeles Lakers probably $100 million in. So in an even sane world where he had proper marketing leverage, he would be like, you know what, I'll give you a deal, Los Angeles Lakers. Just give me $50 million a year and I'll play for your team. Because in an open market, I'll leave you tomorrow and go to the guy who pays me $60 million, okay? So my point I'm going to draw to on the Hiko aspect here is, okay, listen, we can all debate whether we think he should have gone to this team or whether he maybe did overshoot this. But what he's actually doing there is literally the path towards all these players getting out of being fucked, like demanding proper salaries. I have my own sponsors, mate. I'm not just going to go under your sponsor that gets me less money just so that I'm your player now. You know, basically these are you can decide if he's doing it for greedy reasons, but he's actually fighting over player rights issues, which one day should be everyone's concern, right, Rich?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. Now, I again, there'll be some wag, as they're called in the UK, that'll dig up my video on Hiko and say I'm contradicting myself here. So I'll be absolutely clear. I've been critical of Hiko's moves in the past. I do believe his refusal to go back to Cloud9 wasn't predicated so much on money, but predicated on some sort of malicious personal reasons. Okay. And that's my understanding of it. And equally, I will also add the caveat that it's very easy for Hiko to make these decisions because he is a full-time employee of Twitch. He's a partnership manager of Twitch, like everyone else in esports, it seems. So all of that is to be taken into consideration. But ultimately, there is something that you have to agree with Hiko's standpoint, and that is that anybody that says he's just greedy and just doing it for a payday is an idiot. They don't really understand the bigger picture here, and that is that he could have had the biggest payday of all fucking time if he'd gone back to Cloud9. He chose not to do that. So to say he's financially driven is absurd. And you're absolutely right. The sad reality is, first of all, it's considered the norm in esports teams to pay all players the equal salary. That's considered the norm. When you sign as a team, the team is offered a salary as a group, so you will all get this amount. The contracts are replicas. It is uniform. There is no other successful sport in the world that works like that. Because, for example, to use a team you love very dearly, Duncan, NIP, the idea that Get Right is not worth more than anyone else on on that roster is absurd. He is a star player. He deserves more money. He is a brand. I understand that he does allegedly have equity in the brand. Okay. So maybe that's how they compensate for that.
But he's very much an anomaly. Your point is true, though. Yeah. There's no franchise players. It's you guys are all making. I mean, that's a standard and even in the LCS, right? Is that actually, or is there a level? Can you, as an owner, do your players differently in the
everyone
LCS?
Gets the default same salary, but you can pay separate
Riot,
amounts, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's Riot.
But Riot does an even keel. It'd be a team bonus, right? Gotcha.
So you've got this ridiculous situation where, I saw Lurpus wrote a column about it in Elite magazine where he's talking about how they can, and Duncan's done a video on this, there can only be a limited amount of superstars. The ridiculous is their superstar value at no point in their career is reflected in their earnings.
Yeah.
At no fucking point. They carry the weight, actually, for their team. Not just in how they perform. Because, if you're Olaf Meister, right, and we all watch him for Fnatic, JW has a bad game, who's got to pick up the slack, right? It's fucking Olaf Meister. He's got to be the guy that walks into a bomb site and kills fucking 2-3 players, right? That's his job. He's got to be that good all the time, or Fnatic actually struggle in tournaments, he is a fucking god right now at the game. Now, to me, a god should be the highest paid fucking player in the world. That's how it works in any other sport. If you say Lionel Messi, but come on, man, everyone else in Barcelona makes this money, get fucked. Lionel Messi's agent's going to say you're out of your mind. Yeah. Lionel Messi's going to say you're out of your mind. The fucking sports fans are going to say you're out of your mind. Pay him what he's due.
That's also what's really fucked, okay, about esports. This is why there's an axe I always have to grind is this particular issue, Rich, because on one hand, the reason why that's a great system in real sports is that when you pay Carmelo Anthony max salary, then if the team loses, it's then okay to be like, you failed, you did this, you get paid the most. What you're basically doing is you're taking it like, it's all on you. Yeah, you're the star player and all the rest of it, but you can also take your lumps, okay, if you fail. The problem with that scenario is, in esports, we have the worst of all worlds. So you used like an example there, like Olafmeister. I'll give you a better one, okay? People might wonder, why do you have to say that Maniac's a shit player, right? Why do it, right? He's a nice guy. Everyone's getting like, isn't it a team you like? The reason why I do it, right, is because, okay, so in September of 2014 was this tournament. It was the first tournament where the new Titan lineup played, where they'd got Kaylee and they'd got Maniac and they got Apex in the lineup, and they won this tournament. They beat LDLC in the final, who was also a brand new team, and it was one of the great upsets in CSGO, right? A team that actually never would even be a top 4 team, amazingly won an event, beat Fnatic, beat LDLC, won the whole tournament, and Kenny S was the best player. He was probably the best player in the world at the time. He was just going into like God mode. You have to realize, if you're a fan of the game, Kenny S got paid identical salary, identical prize money for basically carrying Maniac in that tournament. Now, the reason I picked this exact example is because what's bizarre is, usually if a team wins a championship, even the worst player did somewhat good. You know, maybe he had a great tournament that time around, maybe he did something. This is one of the few cases where I actually vividly can remember watching the game, and actually in this one, Maniac didn't even particularly play well, even in the wins they had. Like, he actually was bad at the time. He was in his slump of his whole career, right? But he even was bad in the games they won. Like, those games were basically Kenny S getting everyone on his back, taking them all over the finish line, and then at the end being like, right, and then at the end it's the equivalent of if Maniac jumped off and was like, right, even shares for everyone though, yeah? We all get the same, right? And oh, by the way, don't be arrogant and think that you're better than us, you know? Like, I did the same as you. Like, I'm a champion as well, mate. Like,
yeah, there's no I in
no.
team. Right?
And listen, I'm not going the other way, like, fuck all that guy, but you got to be reasonable, you know? There's a reason it's called giving credit. You don't just give an equal amount.
And actually, there is an exception to this rule, which is funny as fuck, because it's the most ironic place on the planet you would have think that did it right. The CGS did put in place the ability to franchise players and pay them more and secure them in drafts and all that kind of shit. Yeah. And here's the biggest bummer, right? We always compare to sports. The business stuff we compare to sports. The training, the events, everything the production value, all compared to sports. And it did take regular sports decades of strikes and bullshit for player rights to be represented properly, for unions to be built, and for players to finally get their share of the revenues that they deserve for being the stars of the sports, right? My bummer is, how long are we going to wait? Why do we have to wait so long to keep this part fucked up, right? We're going to drug test them before we even fucking properly pay them. That is so ass backwards.
That is fucked.
It's so ass backwards, it blows my mind, right?
Like, you know, Scott, you might not know this, okay? In Europe, over the last 10 years, I always used to read these stories online when I would be on forums, like a comedian's forum or a drug forum or something. People from America would be like, yeah, I got drug tested the other day. And I would be thinking, like, what does this guy do? Does he work for like NASA or something? No, he just works a normal job in America. You know, in Europe, that's like, are you out of your mind? You have to get drug tested to just go to an office job? Like, what's mad is we've now got that. We're going to put that into esports now when the player isn't even getting that much money again. It's like, why would anyone submit to that?
It doesn't relate. And so, you know, and again, the top of this, you're going to have some sites in this next couple of years making millions and millions and millions of dollars solely on stats of players. That money's not. Now, people will say, well, it trickles down. If company A does that and they sponsor this tournament org and they sponsor this team and this team and this team, well, surely it gets down all the way down. Yeah, MBK gets $100 more a month. It doesn't get down the right way, right? And I don't know how you fix it. I mean, obviously, player union would solve lots of problems. And I think on the esports side of it, in regards to like the pay issue, we've always, and again, I was a team guy for a while, and it was always like, well, no, if we pay him more, it'll cause team fighting. They have to fly together. What if he rooms with him and he knows he gets $500 more bucks? That's not going to work. It won't work. We have to be. And I never fought it, but it probably always would have worked, right? Fraud, you're the opper, or whoever your star is, right? You could think of all these teams over the years that that guy should have had $100 more, or whatever. Now thousands, right? So that has to change for sure. I think.
Yeah, but not only that though, dude. I mean, fuck. Like it's like you say, even on a base level, even like the shittest player in a team, in any team, I think doesn't necessarily get their value. Let's look at what happens to players, and let's just look at the power structure of esports. So, right, you're typically this will be a real reach for you to imagine this, so I won't even ask you to do it. But like, you're a teenager, okay?
Okay.
The Klondike Gold Rush is going on. Right?
He's got his Letterman jacket on. He's
I'm on my horse. Hang on.
Tell me more. Tell me more. Okay, Rich. Yeah, keep going.
You've been way more generous than me, motherfucker.
Holy shit! Thank
so
you
anyway,
for Greece at least.
Like, okay, so you're a teenager. You haven't really had time to even develop who you are as a person. I just alluded to that right at the top of this, show. You're the only thing you know is that you're good at this game, right? And then you enter this world where everyone's like, "Oh, you're good at that game? Well, we'll pay you to be good at that game for us, okay?" And you're like, "Okay, well, what are you going to pay me?" And they're going to be, "Well, we're going to pay you this, but you got to sign real fast, no fucking around. It's got to be that, and you got to get these." So you go into it, and you're like, "Holy shit, man! Everyone's panicked. Everyone's signing contracts way too early. No one's giving anyone any time to read them, to breathe. It doesn't work like this in any other business." The kid signs, and I say kid, this goes right up to 18. Fuck it, 21, you're a kid to me now. Sure, and that's not even to be disparaging. I just remember when I was like at 21, I was still a fucking joke. I thought I knew shit and I didn't, and I think actually the age of adolescence is increasing a little bit. I don't think kids grow up quite so fast, and fuck it, you live longer, so why should they? So anyway, you sign a contract, you're plunged into this fucking world you don't really get. And the only person, your point of reference is a manager. And then the manager gives you a t-shirt. Gives you a fucking t-shirt. You have to wear it every event. And the t-shirt is covered in logos. You don't know who these companies are, what they do, where they're from, what it means. You just wear that. You are a walking billboard for the organization. And the only commandment you have from the organization is go forth and be successful. That's it. They might not even give you the tools to be successful. You go to an event, you wear the shirt, you play as hard as you can, you get out, and that's it. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess this is sort of how it's supposed to be. And you don't really question it. But then, while that's going on, you're never going to know, like, what's this patch worth? What's that patch worth? What's this worth? How much are they getting for that, right? And you're advertising that shit. You're implicitly saying, I endorse all of these products on me. All of them, right? Without even knowing what they are, who they are, how they're made, how much they're paying. Right, and then or maybe, and I spoke to some pro players recently. They're like, actually, I prefer to use this peripheral at this event, but I'm sponsored by this one, so I have to pretend and use the other one when no one's looking. And I've been told, like, I'll get fined massively if anyone ever takes a photograph of it. And I'm like, well, okay, that kind of sucks.
Good luck. Yeah,
good luck with that. So they can't even get individual. Again, think about sports, right? Like, Your team apparel might be sponsored by Nike or Adidas. You don't have to wear their boots if you're a football player. You can be sponsored by someone else, Puma Kings or whatever. It doesn't have to be who makes the clothes. Anyway, there's no individual endorsement deals. The managers of the organization are getting all this money that you'll never know about. There's no transparency, and you're their fucking pawn. You're their walking billboard. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting. The managers have to enter teams into tournaments. So the tournament organizers are like, hey, we need you guys to enter into our tournaments to give it credibility, but also we'll pay a fuck ton of prize money, maybe even expenses. Maybe we'll even pay for your players to be there. Gives us legitimacy, gives you guys money. And remember, prize money for almost every professional organization is being garnished by either 10 or 25%. It is a rare organization that does zero and lets players keep all of the prize money. So organizations are even getting paid the moment they enter you into a tournament if you get into the prize money. So sure, that might just cover travel expenses, but equally for something like the International, for example, that's a huge fucking payday if you win that. So, let's say, for example, a player goes to a tournament, right? And he has a shit time. It's unacceptable. The hotel you get put in, it gives you flea bites. It's real substandard. You're expected to play for 16 hours a day because of delays. There's no water. It's unacceptably hot. It's just absolutely horrible. And then you come back and you say to your manager, who you think cares about you, you say, look, man, I don't know if I want to go back to that event again. It was real bad. It was real rough. And I'm not going to go on social media and make a fuss about it, but that sucked. And the manager goes, I got you, baby, because I love you. I love you. You're my little walking billboard. I love you so much, right? I'll sort this out. So he goes to the people who run that tournament, and what does he do? Right? He says, my players weren't happy. And they go, okay, well, if you don't make a fuss about it on social media, what we'll do is we'll give you an invite to this invite-only tournament we got 3 months from now. And your team can come, and it's going to be super lucrative, and there's going to be loads of advertisers. You're going to get to network. It's going to be super cool, and just keep them off social media, and let's not complain about the other shit event we did, and I promise we'll do better in future. And the manager goes to the player, I sorted that all out for you, baby. I sorted that all out, okay? Pats him on the belly. Oh, by the way, looks like we'll be going to an event in, dare I say, Dubai in 3-6 months or whatever. And that's not to say ESL run this kind of game. That's a little joke. But the point is, who the fuck is looking after players in all of this? And that's before we even get to the corporations that come in that are buying the leagues.
And the teams.
Players, right? The only people that are allegedly looking after player interests are managers. And how do managers make their money? By directly exploiting talent. Fuck that. That is bullshit. It has got to change.
Well, what's funny is it's the exact same scenario that you just set up there that I said about the agency. How could the person who's looking out for your well-being be hired by the person who's going to hire you and paid more by them than you? Like if your agent and you're the Hollywood actor, you pay him, 10-15% of your earnings, but he's paid 4 times that by the Hollywood studio. Again, who is he serving? He's going to serve the one that pays him the most. So the problem here is it's like the players at the bottom of the pyramid, and it's an inverted pyramid. Everyone above him is fucking him hardcore. So for example, I'll give you an example right now. I won't say the specific names because I don't need to, But there was a game that in esports was the original game that had the crazy numbers no one believed in. It was World of Warcraft, 3v3 competitive mode of World of Warcraft. And at the time, it had the League of Legends type numbers, where the numbers they were showing, for whatever, that were people watching online or logging into a website, were just so unbelievable that everyone from every other game was like, this has to be a lie, you're making this up. I can't, we all made fun of it, you remember, Scott?
Did some of those streams.
We were like, this is just bullshit, there's no way it can be true. But what's funny is, you'd think, if they're getting that sort of numbers, they were already, by the way, getting the 100k viewers, But those players, here's an interesting piece of info for you, Scott, made $0 salary, and yet they played for, well, I don't need to say the names, but imagine the names of really big esports orgs that are around now that were around then. They played for all these orgs, Scott. They paid for the biggest orgs in the world, ones that exist now, ones that we all know, and they have good people working for them. And the reason those players got 10 times more viewers, more eyeballs on their product than people who were Counter-Strike players getting 1/5 of the views, but the Counter-Strike player got €1,000 salary, and the World of Warcraft guy for the same org got $0 salary. And here's you probably know this, Scott. The reason why they got $0 salary is because all the teams got together and made a cartel and said, you know what? Let's all agree for the next year, none of us will pay any of our players a salary for World of Warcraft. And because by doing that, there'll be no inflation. Like, I'm not going to pay my guy nothing, and then you agree to pay yours. So listen, what we're essentially going to do is literally have a conspiracy where we're all going to save money because none of us are going to pay it. And this happened. This was real. And so I'm giving that as an extreme example, but essentially on a lower level, that's what's happening with a lot of these teams and these players anyway. Everyone's fucking over because the problem is market forces, like Richard was mentioning before, market force is supposed to fix this because the idea is if I'm Organization X and I fuck over the player, then Organization Y is like, listen, mate, I'll pay you 20% more and come to me. But if Organization Y and Organization X get together and go, listen, neither of us have to pay the 20% more. I'll pay 1% more, you pay 1% less, and we both get to fuck him over for 8 to 9%. That's when the player's done at that point. There's nothing you can do, right, Scott?
I remember that. That was like the early days of WoW Arena because we Gfinity TV, that's MLG bought us, and we did some of their tournaments, right? And those guys, none of them got paid. None of the teams are getting paid. But our numbers were stupid. Like it destroyed our Counter-Strike numbers. Like we destroyed Halo numbers. We destroyed every MLG number in the books because again, at that point, it had 15 million subscribers. Right? Everyone was tuning in, and we were like, "Oh, I hate broadcasting this game, but look how many people were watching it." And you're absolutely right. All those teams got together because maybe a year and a half before that, Warcraft 3 goes into this stupid bidding war.
Inflation out of the ass.
Inflation drives those player prices to stupid levels, right? And people went out of business because of it.
Oh, by the way, let me just add this as a quick caveat. The initial intention did make sense. The reason why, like you're mentioning here, I'll emphasize this point, is because the first round of big venture capital money came into esports, and in Warcraft 3, idiots did all outbid each other as orgs, so they were all doing the opposite. They were all paying 10 times too much, and then the other guy had to pay 15 times too much. So I get why these orgs want to avoid it. The problem is they went evil. They went the other way and just gave someone nothing.
Yeah. And again, there's something to be said that if you know, a big picture, if there should be a player association, there probably should be an owners association where all these guys can get together and formalize their shit, like the NFL has a players association, has a team owner association, where, you know, within those worlds you have the triangles represented properly. I guess on that side they would just figure out ways to screw each other over behind their backs, and then
it would just be formalized there, Scott.
Yeah,
they're already doing it, but they just have to have an actual meeting for it. Yeah,
or whiskey being drunk. But yeah, Richard, to what you started saying, it sounds like you're going to send a letter to the players going, dudes, let me help you. You need to do this, right?
Yeah, like I'm being too scared to send it at the moment, but like I don't know, man. Like,
see, I've always been a guy that like I'll help you, but it can't
something.
be me. But don't you think it has to, at its core, like be player driven, or do you think it could be outside?
Yeah, it can't be me either. You're right, but like just as a fucking starting point.
Why can't it though, Rich? Like, what do we have to do to put you on that ledge? Like, basically, Rich, what we need to do is you have to be that guy in the movie where his wife's being killed, like his partner's just gone, and at that point, that's why you then go and kill all the bad guys, because there's nothing left for you. You're going to die as well, by the way. You're definitely going to die. So what has to happen until you're at that edge? You know?
Post Raheem Gate, I don't think I'm that far from it.
Okay.
Because I had some conversations with a couple of the guys at Gfinity, right, about this same thing, because they saw me in the lobby and they were bitching about their upcoming schedule and the behind-the-scenes fighting of organizations, and they don't like what a lot of organizations are doing. Players always have problems, right? There's nothing different, and they're just having a little bitch session in the lobby, and Taz turns to go, "Scoots, save you, fix all this," and obviously that's not Taz's accent. It's horrible. And I just looked at him, and like 12 of them from like 8 different teams sitting in front of me. I'm like, "No, you fuckers, you all can fix this." I'm like, there's no sport without you all. Like you all. And so I have this big like pep talk, right? And then I pull a couple aside, right? And I'm not gonna name names. And they were like, "Scoots, you're 100% right. Like preaching to the choir." But here's the problem: the minute we decide something and decide, you know what, putting our foot down, it's exactly what you said, Richard. Is their bosses will go, "Cute foot, get the fuck out of the way. You're going anyway. Your boycott means nothing. You have no power." Because again, in their world, they have no power. Like, they don't see the power, right?
Exactly. And that's what I mean, though. That's why it's got to be somebody. Okay, so it needs to be player-driven, but here's the thing. The players live in a culture of fear. They're afraid of manager backlash. They're afraid of fan backlash. Like, if you're a team that says, we're not going to go and compete at this tournament because we don't believe this tournament is operating on an acceptable level. How long is it going to take before your fans turn on you? Like in esports, not very long, actually. Yeah. Just shut up and go and compete. We want to cheer you. Fuck you.
That's the Hiko thing, like, what do you think? Are you special? Why are you not doing it,
Yeah. Yeah, look at him now in the average Reddit thread. I feel a little bit sad to have contributed to that because, as I said, I've been critical of him, but not critical of him on the grounds that the average Redditor is critical of it.
Yeah.
I mean, my critique is a bit more nuanced, It's like, this is fucking insane, the amount of hate he gets these days.
Just
he's called just greedy Hiko now. It's like...
Gold digger is what they say. They actually call him a gold digger, mate.
Gold digger
Gold digger is... Wait a minute, this is not... Yeah. So, that's the problem. They have the most power, as every athlete would of their sport, but they actually feel like they have the least, which has to be incredibly disheartening. To feel that they really can't affect change in their own sport.
And that's why, so here's how it needs to operate as I see it. Like, they just need somebody to show them what can be achieved without them necessarily putting their reputations on the line. Having a reputation as a rabble-rouser in esports, that could actually impact on your endorsement deals, your sponsorships, what teams want to pick you up, how your manager interacts with you, how your teammates interact with you. What I want to do is I want to reach out to all the fucking players equally and be like, look, everyone fucking hates me anyway, but you guys don't and never have.
Yeah.
So I can be that guy privately. You tell me if a tournament's doing something bad. I go to them and I say, several of the people I represent, right? You don't even need to say Fnatic told me this.
Oh yeah. That's the whole idea behind it. The association,
yeah, exactly,
backs it or doesn't back it.
And even if a team like, let's say for example, what TSM are like, well, actually we don't care about that. Well, there's enough people that it's a factor, so I'm gonna go bring it up. So I go to the tournament organizer and I say, look, this needs to change. Otherwise, the people I represent don't want to enter en masse. And again, if players will all just agree or back each other up, like this TSM ESL thing. Maybe that's not like the big burning issue, the hot button topic to get involved on. But every fucking team I spoke to were like, TSM not being there is bullshit. And I'm like, so why don't you say you're not going to go? Unless TSM are invited. And they were like, well, can we do that?
Yeah.
Can we do that? Can we do that? I'm like, of course you can fucking do that, dude. You're holding all the cards, motherfucker. And they're like, nah. Yeah, you are. You don't realize. So that's the problem. So maybe it needs to be me or somebody who wants to do it like me for now. But you're right. Eventually, they need to get together and they need to appoint a player or an ex-player who is the head of a players' union. That's how it's going to start. I thought for the longest period of time a union would be impossible. Actually, I'm being an idiot when I say that, because all great unions, if you look at history, it just comes from that willingness to stand by each other as a group and voice through typically one person, or sometimes not even a person, just through the printed medium. You put it out as a pamphlet, or you put it on, I guess now you would put it on the internet, right? You just got to voice that disapproval collectively and say, this is one voice. Even though it's many people, it's one voice. Like, I'll do that, right? Like, I got nothing to lose at this point. Like, and as I think I've tried to make clear, the only reason I'm in fucking esports is I just want it to be good.
Yeah.
So that's it for me. Like, so I haven't sent it yet because I'm too fucking scared and apprehensive, and maybe it makes me look super egotistical or megalomaniacal and all that other shit, right? But like, someone's got to, and I'm sick of saying that. So when it gets to a certain point, like, it may as well just be you. So I hope the players will listen, and maybe we can sort something out. I'll do it, even if the player says to me, seriously, at this point, if a player says to me, we're not comfortable with you being a journalist, fine, it's gone. I'll quit. Honestly, hand on heart, I'll go. I'll walk. From
because there might be a conflict of internal conversations.
Of course, exactly. If they've got no confidence in that, to get this done,
that says a lot, actually, that you would.
I'll fucking quit the Daily Dot job, right? That's on record. I'll do that. Because someone's got to take this first step. I've got money in the bank. I'm not financially driven. I don't really give a fuck anyway about, like, the esports journalism is what primarily gets me the death threats. The Raheem situation is a rarity, right?
Yeah.
Generally my hosting and all that's well received. So fuck it. I can do that. There's no conflict of interest. The journalism, though, when you're snooping, you're getting in people's garbage or whatever people want to call it. All right, I'll quit that. I'll quit that to do this for free. I'll quit that to do this. Yeah, 100%.
Well, let me know how it goes. Send a letter, man. Let me know if you need help.
Do it. And a few more drinks. I'll have the requisite Dutch courage.
Do it. Yeah, let me know how it goes, man. I'd love to help too. But again, I think it just has to be player driven. They have to care more than we do. And
right.
I think they do, but they feel very, very handcuffed, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, man. Like, as I said, I got nothing but sympathy, and I want it to change. I want the industry to be more player focused and to offer players like say the value, what they're worth. It doesn't work that way right now, but it should. And actually, it's not going to take too many flexes of muscle to make it change. Once managers realize they're fucking serious and the union is a real thing, because it didn't take long for the teams to union up, by the way.
Yeah, because they have
having
behind
the
secret
scenes, right? Talks about exclusivity deals and shit, or saying to Gfinity, you need to up the prize money and pay our flights and all this shit that's gone on, right? Like, the teams are doing it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Why? But and so again, once again, it's like, oh hey, we don't need to worry about unions now. We're doing it's a team union.
Yeah.
It's not the fucking same. Player rights are still being eroded. And actually, just while we're on the fucking subject, the drugs testing thing, perfect example. Perfect example of putting the fucking cart before the horse, right? Like, you know what, we want to ensure a fucking clean environment, a level competitive playing field, and we're talking about how important that is to us. Well, do you know what else should be important? That professionals get paid on time, that they're looked after, that they operate in a safe environment. These are young fucking adults.
Oh, imagine Richard, if a real player union heard about that. Oh, by the way, we're going to start testing a play, and then the players could be like, wait a minute, weren't we just at an event where like you had all these delays and then it was too hot for us? Wait a minute, aren't you the same company that 2 years ago was like delaying my money that I'd won from a year before and then lying to someone else, telling them that there was no delay? Wait a minute, wasn't that the same person? There'd be someone saying that, right? Someone not just taking up the ass like, oh, I guess I'm getting drug tested tomorrow as well then.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and in some regards, though, like it goes both ways. In some regards, if this union were to form, it would be helpful on all sides, because an ESL, an MLG, could approach a player organization as such and go, hey, we're interested in throwing a Counter-Strike tournament. Can we get your minimums? Can we, it doesn't have to be us and them like always hating on each other. There can be some helpful dialogue too. Let us help you ESL get better. Let us help you MLG. Here's our standard for a monitor. Here's our standard for a table size. Here's our standard for this, that, and the other, right? And again, I think that would...
and that's got to be said, actually. So let's say, the guy who is representing the players, it goes both ways. Now, the organizations, if they want to implement a controversial change, or if there's a new industry standard, they go to that guy, and that guy gets to go to all the players and all the teams and communicate to them. This is what's going to happen in the industry right now. How do we all feel about that? We take a straw poll. We do the temperature test. Right. People are all right with drugs testing, provided X, Y, and Z also happens. Great. And wouldn't that be nice? It just makes things quicker, faster, easier,
And inside the same press release, we spoke to the commissioner of the Counter-Strike Players Association, and his take on the situation. We agree that they're a problem, like the same bullshit line, right? Like you get a lot of things on the same page, and you fight behind the scenes versus fight on Twitter with this shit, right? Right now we're fighting on Twitter.
And that's what I mean. Exactly right. Because Duncan hits the fucking nail on the head. In a real sport, the idea, and look, it's not just the fact. Because, IESF have done drugs tests since 2013. And amazingly, have never found anyone guilty. Amazing, isn't it?
I bet
given
those tests
what we know.
still sit in some box somewhere, right?
Yeah, they did have some properly shit players at their tournaments, though, So I could have told you there's no performance-enhancing drugs there,
It would
Rich.
be super easy to because everybody knows who takes this shit anyway. If you wanted nothing but clean tests, do him, and do him. They're pussies. They'll never touch anything. Like, they don't even care. They're all right, Like, they would just be like that. Yeah, they're straight edge. He doesn't even drink. Fucking test him. So that's how you would win that particular game. But the reality is, right, it's not even the tests that are the problem. Like, Jesus, fuck. I got fans I send my urine to through the... That's a joke. But the reality is...
You're still doing that piss a month thing? That's nice.
Yeah. We'll get back at you. Don't even worry. But no, the reality is, okay, let's say I got a fucking medical condition that I want super, super private in the industry in case it harms my brand. So this could be anything from you're on the autistic spectrum, you have Asperger's, you've got...
herpes.
Herpes, right? It's an STD, an ongoing STD, Hep C, AIDS. Dare I say it?
Sure.
I guess statistically there must be someone in esports with HIV. Now these for me are things that no one needs to fucking know. That is your fucking business, right? But you're gonna have to declare these medical conditions to an independent esports body. Now let's be fucking real about secrets in esports, okay? ESL and Twitch and Vulcan and all those motherfuckers can't even have a secret meeting in their own offices without it getting fucking leaked.
Yeah.
So why the fuck, if I'm the only guy who's HIV positive in esports, why the fuck would I want to tell anybody thinking that information is going to remain privileged? Why the fuck should I have to? because I'm going to have to explain retrovirals in my bloodstream, which aren't even going to give me a performance-enhancing thing anyway. You've got to have a real good fucking... And that's the other thing as well. We can't even guarantee security at an esports event. How many headsets have gone missing? How many cameras have gone missing from press rooms? And what? I'm supposed to trust my piss in a chain of custody from point X to point fucking Y? Get fucked, like.
And then even at its core, traditional sports and WADA and all these organizations have done tests to figure out in their world for their sports what is a PED. What influences enough to not be legal in our world of cycling, in our world of tennis, in our world of badminton, whatever it happens to be?
Yeah.
Where is the tests to say the brain and physical activity of playing a computer game at its high level? Where's the tests that make Adderall the PED? Because it does this over here doesn't mean it does this over here, right? And if they go with the WADA list, we're fucked for a lot of reasons, right? Like a lot of rec drugs are on there. You know, like you said, forget the whole security of your information. Like, that's just really, really scary. And the scary part about it is we're 2 weeks out, and I still don't think the players have been told what they're being tested for. Last week they didn't know.
Yeah.
When Kennegat told me they hadn't been told yet, so that was 3 weeks. I still don't think they know. So it just, again, to me, you know, I did an interview today with a guy from the UK, and like we were talking about gambling, and we talked about the drug stuff. And to me, like, one is being absolutely ignored in our world, other than a few people internally talking about it, and one has been made this huge public outcry and problem that we must fix that is absolutely not a problem. Like, I firmly believe we do not have a substance ped abuse problem in esports. No one is hopping up shit to win and winning doing it. Are kids taking drugs? Yeah. Are kids taking drugs down the street not doing esports? Yeah. So I don't think we have a pet issue. I don't think Fnatic is the best Counter-Strike team on the planet because they're all fucking hopped up on Adderall.
No.
I don't think it's happening.
That's the other thing. I've never met somebody who won an esports tournament actually that took drugs in that tournament. Like, I'll say that. I've met plenty of second places, third places, fourth, fifth who did, right? And maybe the fucking boost was negligible. But actually, winners, like, again, I've made this point in a recent article, winners don't use drugs, actually.
Yeah, to me, it's much ado about nothing. But we have got real issues like we've talked about today that are huge that aren't making the same kind of press. Again, ESL grabs their press. Again, they had to come out with one press release because, again, they got called in the carpet because it was their event that Semphis mentioned. So they had to say something. And their first press release was, we're looking into this. We take it very seriously. We don't condone it. It's in our rules. They have to say that. But then they came back and said, you know what? Not only that, but we're going to test. We're going to link up with
think of
WADA.
the genius. I've got the best example for you here, Scott. So last year, we found out, provably, that at least a couple of real Counter-Strike professionals were cheating, possibly at LAN tournaments.
Yeah.
So we've now going to have real-life drug cheat testing before we've ever had any extra anti-cheat at the LANs. That's how utterly stupid this is. It's a virtual game. We still can't stop the virtual cheating, and nothing else has been done about that. But we're now going to stop real-life drugs cheating before then. That just shows how, like, politics rules everything, right? It's only because it was a political stink that made them look bad in the public that this is what must be done, you know?
It's not even just politics. I mean, look, the reality is, whenever there's a scandal, like Scott talked about this earlier, whenever there's a scandal in esports, mainstream media comes knocking. Hey, heard you had a scandal. Readers would like to hear about this because it makes esports and real sports analogous, and we'd like to fucking print it because then we can maybe tap into that demographic we desperately want to read, our pathetic, dying medium, right? So they're straight on it, right?
They love it.
So New York Times, for example, they were like, oh, we need to seriously talk about Semphis in this throwaway interview with a guy who doesn't even usually do interviews. Launders, like, you know, let's just highlight this like it's a big deal. And they did. And, you know, from that point onwards, all right, everyone's like, if we're the esports company that says we're going to be the first to test, we'll get all of that mainstream exposure.
Come back again.
Hang on a minute. So who can do it first? Who's got the infrastructure to implement it? Could it be the industry leaders? Of course it is. So ESL, They pick up the phone to fucking. It was NADA in the end, but my sources tell me they did speak to fucking WADA and NADA, right? And the National the National Anti-Doping Association.
Yeah, like NADA is like the German.
Yeah.
WADA, right? WADA is more of a.
Yeah. No, it's localized, so they're not WADA yet, but NADA I think operates off the fucking substance list that WADA use
like
anyway.
The charter of WADA. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, and they're like, "Hey, we fixed the problem. Wasn't it? Have we established the problem? Has anyone done any studies into what a performance-enhancing drug in esports actually is?" Like, I was talking on one of my shows to some guy. He called in, absolute legend, by the way. He was clearly a space cadet, but then again, so am I. We fucking found this middle ground, and he was going, nootropics, man. Nootropics are going to be the drug of the future, and obviously nootropics are about enhancing your own cognitive capacity.
Sure.
And they're not too good at the moment, but they're going to be fucking amazing in a few years, apparently. Like, they're going to be like the next Adderall and stuff. And he goes, he told me, as someone who's dabbled in almost everything under the sun, that they are going to be the fucking go-to drug for esports professionals. I haven't even heard them mentioned yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, a lot of people are also mention beta blockers, right, to help you with anxiety and block
Adderall,
those kind of things.
beta blockers.
Right. Yeah.
These are things that have been in esports for at least 8 years.
But again, I don't think they're in the sense that the championships are being won because of their use.
No. Right? That's the thing. With athletics, you do the fucking drugs that you do that give you fucking muscle mass. This is all permanent physical stuff. And that's the other thing, actually. There's so many players in esports that are on fucking steroids.
Yeah.
Actual steroids. And there you go. That's like, don't name anybody, baby.
No, it's just protein
I won't
powder,
name any names.
Just protein pre-powder workout, bro. Protein pre-powder workout.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
Take my
Got
GNC,
a belt
bro.
I can borrow, yeah? Right? They're on fucking roids. I know the guys that are on roids. I fucking talked to them about it. I used to do steroids. We've talked about what cycles they fucking like to go, oh, you're doing that?
Yeah. And that's going to be on the list, right? If they use a regimented list, that shit's on there. Even though it has nothing to do.
Has anyone looked at one of those guys with those beautiful muscular physiques and ever said, you got a wicked advantage in esports now, bro? No one's ever said that. Because it probably doesn't give you an advantage. Now, all of a sudden, if you want to get fucking buff and you want to take a few shortcuts, and by shortcuts, I do use the term loosely, you have still got to go in the gym.
Yeah.
There's kids out there that think you just inject steroids in your ass or in your arm or in your thigh or wherever you fucking, and that's just, you just swole as fuck. Like, it definitely don't work like that. Yeah, mad gains, right? But, those guys that have used them, if they're still in there, if they've just finished the cycle and they want to compete in an esports tournament, those guys are breaking the fucking rules. It's got nothing to do with esports, why they're taking the drugs in the first place.
Again,
and most depressingly of all, Scott, and I know you will definitely appreciate this, recreational drugs.
That's where I was going with my...
What you do in your free and personal time, all of a sudden, fucks esports. And I made the joke on a show I did, and it wasn't really a joke, actually. I said if it wasn't for fucking marijuana, there wouldn't be any esports, because you'd have to be stoned to fucking think of it. But it's not really a joke.
Yeah.
People thought it was.
We could turn this into a sport, man.
Think about this. The stupidest part of the whole, especially the ESL example, because this is one we're on about now with the drug testing, because they're the first one to come forwards with it, is if you remember the timeline, it went like this. You'll probably remember this, Scoots. The first story that they responded in was like their press officer person saying, actually, no one who's, as far as we know, who's ever competed at our events was on drugs. So what they're saying is there's not a problem in any way. We're in the industry, we've been around a long time. There's not a problem. Therefore, let us... next story, implement the most draconian possible policies, which will fuck tons of people in other ways that have nothing to do even with drugs and esports. But remember, we're saying there's not any actual problem. So essentially we're only fucking the outlier guys here, because apparently it's not even a problem. Like, the only way you could justify the drug thing is 9 out of 10 people are on it, so we're sorry to the one person who's not on the performance enhancing drugs that we catch, but we're going to catch the other 9 people. They're saying, no, there isn't another 9 people. Well, then aren't you going to fuck over that one guy?
Yeah,
but it's a really big sport now, like, what?
Clean,
doesn't even make sense, does it?
Well, like you said, recreational stuff. I'm in California, or I'm in, even better, I'm in Washington State. It's legal, and I'm the best operator in North America. And I smoke every day because I legally can where I live. and then all of a sudden I piss in a cup or you wipe me and I can't play in a major? Why? You really think me pulling bong rips at home improves my fucking gameplay? Right? So, like, and again, obviously that's legal in lots of places these days, more and more every year. So I don't, or medically with a card, right? I have anxiety, doctor prescribed. Is that the same as your asthma medicine? I don't know. So, yeah, I just think it's such, they just grabbed onto it to grab onto it. And it's like, not a problem. And it's been blown up to be such a problem, and then we'll fix it. And it's like, it's neither of those things, man, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm really scared. No lawyers,
no
no agents. So who cares about the players? No agents, no lawyers. Yeah, I
and
guarantee.
Here's the other thing as well. Go on.
I was gonna say, I guarantee the minute a player gets busted, the team goes,
Here we go.
sorry, see ya, pleasure working with you, gotta go.
Yeah.
They will not back that player. They will send that kid, they will cut his contract. They'll cut him and actually sit on his contract and try to sell his contract.
Yeah.
To
so
make
what
money on
happens,
him.
right? You haven't even said, like, what's the fucking appeal process?
Yeah,
How does it
yeah.
all work? Like, what happens in the interim? What happens globally, actually? Because, like, you know, is it like a situation where, like, ESL bans you from a cheater, but you can maybe operate, like, simple, you know, half in, half out?
Like,
Yeah. No one's talked about it. Will other organizations mirror ESL bans? Like, hey, you do the tests for us, and we'll fully support you. There's loads of legal shit going on. In fact, like, no one even talks about this. I don't even know if ESL want this being common knowledge. But one of the reasons why, if you get banned, say, in, like, ESEA, or you get banned for cheating in, you know, fucking some other league, right, or you know, whatever, ESL don't mirror those bans, and DreamHack don't mirror ESL bans, because there's genuine legal implications there. You could go to a fucking lawyer and be like, well, I got banned in ESL, why the fuck are DreamHack banning me? And they would go, yeah, that's a real good point, actually. It doesn't just transfer over like that. You would have legal recourse. So this is why ESL actually are grateful when Valve come in and say, hey, it's our game, we control it, so you can't play, you fix the match, you can't play, it's all sorted, right? It's legal reasons. There is legal recourse that the players aren't even fucking aware of, right? And then and the organizations are, and they, you know, and they're like, well, that's why we don't do this thing. So anyone who's ever asking a question about why something doesn't happen, that's why. So it's exactly the same with this drugs testing bullshit. There would need to be right to appeal. There would need to be a barrier between the testers, the accusers, and also the managers of the organization. Someone who just works for the player. Like, okay, this is what we do next. Okay, this is how we approach it next. Just like real athletics, real sports. And it isn't there yet. I mean, again, I just find it hilarious that we fix a non-existent problem in 5 fucking days, but a genuine problem we can't fix in 5 fucking years. And that's players being, underrepresented in our sport.
So, okay, to drag us back a minute from the kind of, we were on the fringes there, we were just going full on. Every single, every 5 sentences, people would be like, and here's another secret about the industry that I will say on record right now. It's like, okay, pull it back a sec, because we'll get back there again, I've no doubt. But we have to start somewhere reasonable again. So, okay, here's where I want to go to. I want to actually really get your take on this, Scott, here. And when I say the caveat of, like, my opinion, I'm really not asking, like, you know, and isn't this right? Like, you'll back me up on this. I'm not trying to be, like, the hype man, okay? Yeah. Okay, people probably think I'm being a bit naive when I say this. But if streaming technology had existed as it does now, and if there'd been, well, for sort of YouTube, if there'd been any of this shit back then, okay, I genuinely think that stuff like Counter-Strike back in the early days would have been way bigger. Like, I realise that's a ridiculous statement to make, because you have to, what I'm basically saying is, if everyone's internet connection was 10 times faster, and YouTube existed, and Twitch, and streaming, and there were sponsors, like, I've asked for about 7 miracles there that didn't exist. But what I'm saying is, if that stuff had existed, it's not that. It's basically, I'm putting the cart behind the horse. I'm saying that when that stuff exists, then a game that has the potential to be big can be huge. So it's not that League of Legends made esports massive, etc. You had to have these things in place for a League of Legends to get. So, okay, I'm not saying that Counter-Strike would have been million people watching, like at whatever it was at Katowice this year, but it would have been comparable to maybe a couple of years ago already, even 10 years ago. What do you think, Scott? Is that to what? Because I mean, you were behind the scenes again. I wasn't. I don't know what the numbers were for these events.
I think the biggest key to the growth of all of this is the delivery platform. Absolutely, we already had the delivery platform of the internet. We already had everyone living on their PCs, and now we had this product. Whether it's Justin TV or Ustream or all the other live streaming platforms that came out, I could give you my content without a barrier of entry and without a barrier of cost on my end. That's astronomically important to an ESL, to an MLG. It was so damn important to MLG that they realized that they needed their own platform, right? And they weren't going to use others. So I don't think it can be. I don't think you can. I don't want to give credit just to the boys in purple, the Twitch crew, but the idea of live streaming platform. Because again, if anything, Ustream fucked it all up. We were all on Ustream. They were the corporate delivery-free platform, and we were using it for gaming, and they didn't give a fuck. And then we all went to Justin TV because they cared. Ustream owned us. As a content developer, having to use shit like Octoshape, and having to beg a kid to download it. It had no virus in it. Trust me, download the fucking thing, man. And seeing forums going, I would watch if it wasn't for Octoshape. I would watch if it wasn't for this plugin. I would watch if it wasn't for this. I would watch if I didn't have to pay,
Mate, I used to, every time there was one of those events, because those WEG events used to use Octoshape famously. It's the only way you could watch. It wasn't HLTV, it wasn't live, right? So I used to just be like, this is bullshit. I don't want to watch, first of all, I don't want to watch live necessarily. I might want to watch the demo, which I can't watch. I definitely want to join HLTV. Like, I don't want to possibly have a medium where I could ever pay 1 cent to any fuck who gives me this, because it should be free. I am in esports. Everything is done for me, right? I was the fan, basically, right, Scott?
Yeah.
So, and also, you make a great point there, by the way. Ustream, basically, are like the fucking, the story in the creation of Apple, where when Apple made the Apple II and they made all that money, the joke is, everyone who knows about the industry knows that really the company Xerox completely fucked up. They owned everything, right? They owned, basically, they had, the GUI of moving the mouse around the screen and stuff. They had all the networking. They had everything that eventually became the computer industry. Because they were making fucking photocopiers, that was just some nerd guy made that shit up, and they never implemented it right until it was way too late and it all failed, right? So basically, Ustream was sort of people are using our software to sort of stream podcasts. I used to watch the Joe Rogan podcast that used to be on it back in the day. There was gaming shit. They were sort of people are using it for this weird thing. No point investing any money in that or making that big. That'll never go anywhere. And now, obviously, I'm sure Ustream's made fuck all compared to what Twitch has made now.
Oh, God, yeah. So I definitely think the delivery platform, again, you could say the same thing for traditional sports and television, right? Very regional, very city-based sports that you would get your coverage via newspaper, right? And those kind of things. Then when you can watch the TV and see your sports, those sports explode, right? No different for us, right? We had other delivery methods, but they were costly, they were cumbersome. And again, I can get that bandwidth for free, means the money I charge SteelSeries for their logo in the corner is even better for me because I'm not paying half of my money back in bandwidth costs, right? We had a financial arrangement with Octoshape. It wasn't just use our product. We had to pay to use it, right? So it can't be understated. I think it's blown up gaming in general, right? Because it's not just our little esports niche. How many people are watching Lyric right now play H1Z1 or some other game, right? The idea of entertainment being...
See, now I'm the old guy. He's just throwing out all these acronyms here, Rich. And I'm like, is that one of those games that all the kids are... Can we talk about Counter-Strike again, please? I'm out of my depth now.
So I think the idea, these platforms have given the idea of, hey, it's entertaining to watch someone else play a video game, right? And obviously, we do it for sport. So yeah, I think you're spot on to say that it has blown it all up because again, with this platform, it makes the mainstream people that want to give me the advertising dollars care, right? Because I've now got I got a way to deliver the message, right? So yeah, it cannot be understated. And you're right, League of Legends lands at the right place at the right time. StarCraft 2 lands at the right place at the right time, right?
Yeah.
If that game dropped for the first time right now, it might not get as popular as it is then, right? Because Counter-Strike wasn't there, right? We were done.
Well, here's a great one for you, right? Scott. Here's a controversial statement. which I don't think is even that debatable, okay? But that is great because it'll make everyone from every other game super butthurt. So you ready? Here's the great one for you.
Let's do it.
The reason why Counter-Strike's super popular now is, yes, stuff like skin betting and gambling and Twitch and stuff. These have all boosted it massively. But the reason I find when I go experientially around my life in esports to talking to people from other games is Counter-Strike is everyone else in esports' second game. So everyone who's a pro of League of Legends, pro of Dota, pro of StarCraft 2, the only game they all watch is Counter-Strike. And the reason why, this is why it'll make people butthurt, is because as a spectator sport, it is actually way better than those esports. So here's what's fucked, okay? League of Legends will always have more numbers, but one of the worst conversion rates of player to person watching you will ever see in esports for a successful game. They could have like 200 million players and they wouldn't have the same percentage that Counter-Strike does. So as a result, my conclusion, which I also think is an opinion anyway, is that League of Legends is a way worse spectator sport. Like I was in esports for all these years, and until I started playing and watched tons of OGN, I couldn't tell anything that was going on. The team fights were a nightmare. They're still bad now, mate. I know all the abilities, and sometimes it's still hard to tell, like, oh, someone cancelled an auto attack. That's in Counter-Strike, I never miss these details, you know? It's inherently a better spectator experience in this sense, you know. So as a result, that's why I say it should have always been a huge game if it could have, right?
Yeah, and I think if Twitch is alive during 1.6, we're still playing 1.6 maybe right now, right? Like shit.
Rich?
But like the whole point of the spectator thing, right, that you're talking about here is that it's so fucking simple. You understand crosshair to head, bang bang, you dead. Like it's a fucking simple premise.
We all play.
See, Raheem, it's not that hard, mate. Just do it on command.
Yeah, exactly. Even he can say "babam," right? Yeah. I don't need to fucking understand that the giant cow can do a fucking headbutt knockup combo.
Yeah.
And if I pop my ultimate, fucking whatever it is, 75% of damage is not gonna, this is ridiculous. What you understand with Counter-Strike is real fucking simple.
Yeah.
That to move a crosshair across a screen at that speed, at that accuracy, is super fucking difficult. And everybody in esports has always admired Counter-Strike players. No matter what other game you play, it's always been respected, always been admired. And we're talking about conversion rates. This is the point I wanted to make, Scott. Like, there were less peak players on Steam for the last few years of 1.6 than were actually watching it live.
Yeah.
So who are those other guys? Who are those other guys? Tell you who those other guys are. They're esports fans. This is why I railed for years about fuck tribalism, man. Like, esports is stronger unified. Like, yeah. League of Legends, yeah. But Counter-Strike, yeah? If we can all get together, Dota, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you all hate each other, but hang on. Shh, hear me out, right? What if we all watched each other's events? What if we just did it for a bit, right? Imagine what would happen. A unified esports scene has always been stronger, more marketable, more successful than a fucking one divided on petty
But isn't that at its core trying to have a unified sports scene? Right? If you look at it, the parallels. I like basketball, I don't like baseball.
Right,
I like
that's
Counter-Strike,
fine.
I don't like League of Legends.
How many sports do you like, though?
2 or 3, let's say.
Right, there we are.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
I mean,
enough.
yeah.
In esports, okay, you don't even get that. You talk to the average
the
guy.
hardcore,
What games do you like? Well, I'm a Counter-Strike player. Yeah, but what games do you like?
But they're all lying because they're closet fans of other games, right? I mean, what you're seeing a lot of now is like the Call of Duty guys all of a sudden, like the Call of Duty guys have found Counter-Strike Go, right? And now all of a sudden they're lifelong Counter-Strike fans. Oh yeah, I watched that shit all the time back in the day. But they're rewriting their own history because they love this new version.
We all know because we were there, like, and I dread to think what it was like before my era. So 2005, fuck man, you say to anybody what games you like, it literally is that simple. It's binary as fuck. I play this game, therefore I watch this game.
Yep.
What other games do you watch? None of them. Yeah, but if you did that, then nah.
I mean, the Quake community at its core still hates Counter-Strike for what happened over a decade ago because Angel picked Counter-Strike over Quake and kind of, unfortunately
basically,
for them,
Quake
shelved their popularity, right?
For the Quake community, That's why I laugh when StarCraft 2 hates League of Legends. It's like, this isn't even a new thing to hate, mate. Like, you're literally the Quake community hating on Counter-Strike. The game that hasn't done anything to you. By the way, likewise to Quake and Counter-Strike, by the way, to some degree, hasn't even actually directly impacted you. It's gotten so big that by scale, you look shit. Yeah. But they're not really taking anyone away.
And then we hated Painkiller because they got a whole bunch of Angels money for a while, right?
To be fair, Painkiller, everybody knows Painkiller was a shit fucking game.
Well, that was an esport buy-in for sure. You know, it didn't work out.
One of the first ones.
One of the easily, the roots for every cynical esports buy-in that's ever been fucking made. But look, this is what I mean. It's like I like what we've got in 2015. And that is that, when I talk to pro league players, here's how I know CS had made it, actually. Obviously, I go to a bunch of events, doing interviews with LoL players, not so much now, maybe related to Reddit issues, who knows why. And I fucking talked to a pro league player, and he asked me to sign something. I couldn't get interview time with those guys like 2 years ago. That's how big CS is. He's like, oh, you do such a great job hosting. I love watching you and Thorin, Scoots, that old one, and the way Thorin smashes the bread on the table. It's just, and I'm like, yeah, it's great. I'll sign your thing. And I'm like, you're a fucking pro player in League. You do realize that for the longest period of time, everyone was looking at your game like you were hot shit,
Yeah.
So, so that's how you know how big it is. But that's great, right? Because, like, if even League pros have accounts and are playing it, and top League streamers streaming it, and League players are watching it, that's great for us. But equally, we need to reciprocate, I think. And everybody needs, it can't just all be like, we're the hot shit now. Like, esports has to support each other. I genuinely believe that. Always
makes sense.
So here's something I think is brilliant on this exact topic here of like the cross section between CS getting huge as the new wave of esports and these other esports that exist now, which initially led the way. So one of the things that I'm sure this panel it's a reasonable consensus on, that one of the things I think is great about CS getting big is the idea that we don't have to have a lot of the bullshit that came packaged part and parcel with those other games. So before, Scott, they could tell you, the reason why you can't ever swear on a broadcast is because that's why League of Legends is the biggest game, because we've buttoned it down and we've got it to like sort of safe and it's family friendly, etc. Whereas what we can say now literally is like, no, we don't do any of that stuff because we're actually coming from esports. So this is what esports is, and we know that most of the people watching are esports fans. And you know what? Look, here are our numbers. Our numbers aren't shit. They're not as mega as yours, but they're pretty good. They're doing pretty well. So I hope that's what I want to discuss now. Is like I hope that ironically people like us sticking around isn't just because finally like our ship's coming and we got all that sick money that we definitely do. Keep paying me sick money, sick. I want it to be so sick that I even feel bad for getting it, but then I realise how good I am and I'm like, actually I deserve this money. So that's the level I want it to get to, Rich. Okay, but it hasn't got quite there yet. I still don't feel ashamed for it yet,
No shame yet. Shame.
Yeah. But no, the reason why I bring this up is because I actually hope that people like us being around who are from the old school in that sense, that when it comes to the point where these orgs and these tournament organisers and whoever are like, right, you have to do things like this guy, we can be like, no, actually we're not doing it that way because it's not going to be as good and it's not like the spirit of the game. What do you think, Scott? Because you're someone who always does this. That's what I like about you, actually. Me and Richard, okay, to the public, they think we just do whatever we want at these events and we say whatever we want. That is a ridiculous notion, by the way. What we literally do is gauge by the person hiring us, what's he going to let us get away with? What does he maybe even want us to do? Maybe he wants us to say something controversial. But the difference is, okay, there's some stuff, actually. When I go to these events, Richard can vouch for this, I actually never swear on broadcasts. I'm actually reasonably like a good guy, because I want to I want that fucking sick money, like I said. I definitely want that to come through. So I've got to do whatever it takes to get to the end of the event where they pay me. I can't get fired on day one. But here's the thing, okay, what makes Scoots great is Scoots will just come out of nowhere and just start demanding stuff that actually is not even required. He'll just be like, yeah, actually, we're probably going to like swear a bit on the broadcast, like when it's the like, what? We didn't even agree on this. He's like, no, we're going to have to do that because it's going to have to be more of like a loose environment. And we're going to have to mention before where your organization actually like fucked up completely at the last event and had like really shit tables, and then all the players were like, these guys are all complete cunts. I'm going to have to address that first thing immediately on air, and the fact that like all these players were banned because of cheating and stuff. And then the organization guys just looking at him like, do we have to do all that? And Scott's like, yeah, or I'm not going on in 5 seconds now. Like, he does, doesn't he, Richard?
It's got to be said, the nicest way to describe it is Scott's a fucking perfectionist, in the sense that, you know, I respect it, actually. It's not being a diva. A diva is where you think about, how can we make things better for me and only me? Like, all of Scott's objections are about how's it going to look to the people outside. So that's the difference between being a perfectionist and a diva. But it is true. Like, whereas me and Duncan, like, I mean, I'm still a little bit shell-shocked. I say it all the time. I don't know why anyone would want to hire me, let alone everyone hiring me all of the time, which is happening at the moment. And I know it won't last, obviously. But you know, I don't understand why it's happening. I'm always a little bit grateful, and I try and be the mediator, you know, between production and talent, and be like, hey guys, we can find a middle ground. It's all going to be okay. Scott's got it like that. He's like, it's not going to be okay. This needs to happen. This is the fucking bare minimum that's acceptable in any real... Do you know, have I mentioned that I work with real companies? I've done fucking Coca-Cola, motherfucker. What is this shit?
Oh, God.
So that's what I love about you, man. The fact that actually you care enough about the people at home that you want them to have the perfect thing. And you care enough about all the talent in the studio that it's done a set way, you know.
Well, I think you actually made a point in your defense the other day when you were talking about your stuff at Acer Predator, right? And a lot of people don't understand, and they don't have to, that a host's job isn't just to be the one saying hello and welcome. Like, you are the ringleader. You spiritually and mentally kind of take an unwritten leadership role, at least on your desk. Maybe not to do with the caster desk and what happens outside, but like they want you, and you want to own that space, right? Because you need to be as comfortable as possible, and your bosses want you to be as comfortable as possible because it'll come through. Now, I think to a pro and a con for me is I am a producer and a director, and oftentimes, most of the time, I'm more experienced than the guys in my ear, right? Because they're still learning and they've just been hired or whatever, and I've been doing shows for a long time. So I end up getting a little more forceful than a lot of guys. Like, no, this is our rundown order. We're going here, 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 and here, because if this was my show, that's how I would do it, because that's how it makes sense for the viewer at home. You don't start talking about Group D when you haven't talked about the prize purse and how you got to Group D and all those kind of things. So, and I've been really lucky with the guys that have hired me, like producer-wise. Like we sit and have that conversation. Red Eyes comes from the same space, so his rundown is in the order it should basically be in, right? Because he knows that flow. And again, I definitely am more forceful than probably most guys, because I'm just used to the other side of it. I know how to talk to them. I know what they're going to fuck up with. I know what to hopefully try to avoid them fucking up. Where I lack is my on-air skills, right? That's where I still fall down in comparison to guys that host for a very long time. I think the last SIVO event I did were my best throws in and out, whether they were to commercial or to casters. But before, like, the shit we do is so rough on my end. Like, okay, I think Banks is ready. You know, that's not my job.
Yeah, it's okay though, because you are Duff McKagan, remember? As long as you've got Axel Rose there and Slash, you're killing it, Scoots.
Banks will be there with his mic off.
Yeah, and again, obviously, all three of us have had fucking rows, and we've had fights. Like, if you guys saw the fights I had with these two the first couple of events, because again, I take things a little differently, and I hope, and we've definitely come a long way since that first Gfinity event, no doubt about it. But like, and my problem still that I have to let go on is it's not my production. I'm not hired to direct it. It's not my gear. It's not my camera operators. It's not my jib. The lighting's fucked up, but should I really let it affect me? Should it literally let me like how much I let that stuff push my buttons? I need to be less of and go, you know what? You should do it this way and this way and this way. If you're not gonna, so be it. I ain't taking shit on Reddit for it though, you know. So I got to work on my game, and that's where I pull away and go, you know what? I've suggested how you should do it. If you don't want to, so be it. So I don't even know how we got on the tangent of me hosting.
Rich, so let me pull you back to the top again and ask you this question then, Scoots. Since you said, like you said here, you've actually produced real events, okay, like huge ones that have millions of people watching at once and massive corporate sponsors. So I don't know, again, this is something I don't know anything about this world of, okay, so I'm telling you, I'm completely naive. Is this something to do with why you actually are like forceful on the senses I'm talking about? Like you want there to be like a bit of like It's not just for kids, you know. It's not a Disney. You're not putting on a Disney production, which a lot of esports people are trying to do. Okay, it's like families and friends. Like if it's Counter-Strike, listen, we know what Counter-Strike players are like. We know what the fans are like. We're gonna have swearing sometimes. We're gonna make jokes sometimes. If coming from that world, like, can you give us some insight there? Like, what, like, should we be able to get away with these things in Counter-Strike? Should we be able to be more of like the Top Gear type shit that people apparently like? You know,
I think so. I think you have to find your audience, and obviously TV and TV-like productions have a whole set of rules that deal with broadcast legalities of what you can get away with too, right? In the sense of swearing and FCC rules in the States, and globally it's slightly different. And obviously everything is more buttoned up when that kind of money shows up, right? Even if they want to be loose and casual and edgy, then they're not, right? Because they're too corporate. Just watch the X Games, right? They took the most edgy fucking sports in the world and turned them into fucking Disney sports, right? Yeah, they're not in suits, but they might as well be, right? It's actually unfortunate. So I've always felt
they don't even refer to the players as horses or anything, Scott. They've just lost the vibes, the hardcore edge. You know, we haven't lost that though, right?
And I guess that's why I like DreamHack so much, right? Like I've always been a fan of keeping it real, right? Keep it real to your scene, and yeah, and for Counter-Strike, I mean, obviously we come from a very trash talky scene. There's no doubt about that. But I think if you get too buttoned up. You know, that's why I told MLG I don't want to wear a fucking tie. They wear ties. I don't want to wear a tie. That's too buttoned up for me. That's too ESPN for what we do. We don't. It's disingenuous to our sport. Like, and again, I don't even know why a football announcer would need to be in a suit and tie. Really, why does that affect anything? Right. So that's a bigger issue. But so I think there's a fine line, right? Can I sit and drop F-bombs and derogatory sexual? Like, there's a fine line to our joke telling and what we can get away with. But I absolutely think that where we are with what we do, so to speak, like when I meet us three, is much more where I would like esports to be, with a real and a little bit of an edge. Because to me, I think even traditional sports is often too nice to its $1 million athletes, right? Because they're now getting the paycheck. Now they should be able to be criticized, right? And depend on the journalist, right? But even they are, well, they tried really hard. They'll get them next time. No one says, no, the 49ers played like absolute fucking shit. You know, obviously they wouldn't use the word shit, right? So I like the edge. I think our fan bases have the edge. I think the ones that say Richard Lewis saying fuck on air is unprofessional and will never grow because of it are just absolutely idiotic. Now, if Richard Lewis
I've actually heard that argument.
No, we hear it all the time. You know, now if you were dropping, derogatory racial slurs and homophobic slurs all the time, that's totally different. But me saying shit or fuck once in a while, like, oh my god, that fucking game. How amazing was that fucking Counter-Strike? No sponsor is ever going to pull out a cent because
Richard,
of that.
I've got a great example of this for you, of a real moment like that people loved. It's not about you, actually. Here's what you're going to love, because you might not... You probably didn't see this, okay, because it wasn't during like a big match or something. At the International, Red Eye, after the All-Star match, where it was this ridiculous match, okay, just actually dropped an F-bomb on purpose. He was like, analyze 10v10, what the fuck? And obviously he did it to emphasize that was so incredible, so ridiculous. But you know what? The world didn't end. And the genius of it, obviously, that we know, is that behind the scenes, Red Eye's like the number one person of all time to be like, don't ever drop F-bombs on air. Don't so he even himself realized this was a way to make it. It was a real moment. What do you think?
Yeah.
But no, I definitely agree with that. Not only that, though, one of the things I will say about Paul is I think he proved at the International he's probably the best host we've ever had, actually. He had the film.
I've got a soft spot for Scoots myself, Richard, but yeah, keep going. Yeah.
No. I mean, look, I fucking defer to both of them, but the reality is that Paul had to fill in an unfamiliar game for like 3 hours while it was being fucking DDoS. He carried the broadcast. He had banter. Like, what I like most of all, actually, and I'm not gonna obviously fucking take any credit for this because I'm new to hosting.
Because he's trying to be like us, man.
No. I ain't gonna do that. But he bantered, and that's what I like, right? That's what I like to do. And for some reason that's become bullying to a fucking sanitized, child audience or whatever. People who shouldn't even be watching Counter-Strike. They're not old enough. But anyway,
and I think one of the
all bantered at the International.
Is all banter. And I think here's the thing too, Duncan, to the core of this whole point, everyone who's doing on-air talent, in every game for the most part is self-trained, right? We're not professionals. Obviously some people are really, really good, have ascended, are great, but it's not like we're all Hollywood actors or we're all professional ESPN casters, right? Who have learned and had voice coaches and all those kind of things. So, and have built their persona in a PG environment, right? Chris Berman has built his persona on TV having to act that way. So he figured out how to be himself under the constraints of those morals, right? Of how you act on TV. So if you take all these kids that can be really entertaining and really funny and make them be this, it's gonna suck, right?
Yeah,
and I will point to the last ESL major, right? No offense to anyone on a 5-person panel, but when all Machine has time to do is, hey, Anders, what do you think? And he says it, and then he says it, and like no banter, right? To Richard's point. And you have to like dry hump that for fucking a weekend. That makes everybody look bad at their jobs, and that's not Machine's fault, right?
No.
If he can't have banter and have that lighthearted, like bring out the fun, stale, dry sports
it's
or stale,
got to be
dry
organic. It's got to be organic. And
Yeah,
that's the thing, like, so when we do shows, like much like we're doing this here, right? We're all 3 big personalities. We're talking over each other. We're not necessarily taking the appropriate fucking verbal cues. Yeah, exactly. Because why? Because we're all comfortable with each other, right? We've all known each other a long time. We know no one's gonna get upset. Like, I'm not stealing your airtime. You're not stealing mine. This is fucking Duncan's podcast, right? We're probably talk way more than him. Who gives a fuck? Like, what are we gonna do? Cry about it? Like, this is how it should be. This is an organic conversation. This is what they call a human moment, right? So what we're doing is we're being fucking real, right? And this is like what everybody wants to see. I mean, don't get me wrong. The esports community will very often kill this golden goose because when someone says something they don't like, that was real and off the cuff. No, that's too real. That's too real. Yeah. But for the most part, what you don't get to say with, like, ESL is an example of this, unfortunately. There isn't any banter. There isn't anybody feeling comfortable talking over each other. No one's going to have the balls to stand up and say, I disagree with you there, actually. And then someone might come in and go, oh, damn, son. Like, Thorin always does it. Yeah, I want to be the hype man, he says. I always want to be the hype man. I just stand in the back and I go, shit, son, you got served. Like, just fucking throwing money at someone or something. Like, that's what he wants to do, And we should be able to do that, right? We all fucking know each other, It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, and what we've done on DreamHacks, for example, is we've had ridiculous moments. I remember there was a JPEG made, and it was like it was a DreamHack tour, and it was LOL analysis desk, and it was like they're all there in their matching waistcoats, like I'm so glad that Riot's dick is jammed so far up my ass, I have no personality anymore. That's what, that's what her face was saying. Yeah. Then it was like Dota analysis desk, and it was sort of a bit more fun, but it was still And then it just comes to a picture of Thorin smashing a loaf of bread off a table, and people were saying that's why CS is gonna die. That's why it's never gonna grow. You're a fucking retard if you think that. Like, we don't need to conform a fucking ESPN. ESPN didn't wake up one day and went, oh, we're ESPN. Like, it became what it was. Sports broadcasting didn't just wake up one day, we're sports broadcasting, these are the rules. It evolved to where it got to. The norms became the norms. We can set our own norms. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? And that's why I always said, when we do a Gfinity, for me, it has to be Top Gear. Has to be Top Gear. Has to be our 3 personalities all getting equal time, showcased, having fun, talking over each other, making jokes that maybe are a bit near the knuckle, but fuck it, you know what you're getting when you tune into a broadcast with us 3. And I'll fully support. If you don't want to watch us, don't fucking watch us. Just don't write some pissy little email to deprive all of the people who enjoy us from being able to watch us. That makes you a fucking bitch.
It's not hurting.
So fuck you if you do that.
I mean, again, as long as, and again, as someone who dealt with sponsors and has over the years talked to a lot of sponsors about a variety of issues, like, they don't care at its core about a whole lot of things about their money spent. They want good exposure, and they don't want anything associated to them that's going to be homophobic or racist. And then there's a whole lot of leeway in gaming for a whole lot of other shit, because we're gamers at our core, right? And again, like, to take the sports analogy, you could talk to any hardcore X Games athlete type, a snowboarder, a skateboarder. Like ESPN buttoned up their sport, and they literally hate that event, right? It's the most corporate sellout event of their tour. It's the least real to them. It's they hate everything about it. It's like there's a really good movie called The Lords of Dogtown, right? And it's about the transition of the skateboarders, right? Great fucking movie. It tells a true story, right, of these skateboarders that went from like nothing to being discovered and it very much kind of mimics how sports in general get going, right? From an endemic sponsor, hey, here's a skateboard, kid, ride for me, wear this t-shirt. Now you get some trucks. Hey, we'll sell a skateboard with your name on it, Tony Alva, and you'll make money, right? And then those guys were all sellouts, right? Because they were taking the money and they were wearing polo shirts now instead of fucking t-shirts that were thrashed. But again, long story to the very end, ABC, ESPN buys their biggest event, the X Games, when it was cool, and turns it into a corporate shit show. Mountain Dew and and again, they have to go, right? They have to go pay homage to this event every year, right? I want to go to the X Games because Counter-Strike maybe, but it's not their favorite event, right? And it is the most buttoned-up corporate snowboarding event on the planet. I don't think we need to do that ever. Now, again, should we be calling people certain names? And no, there's definitely a line there that you don't cross. But man, if we get too buttoned up, please welcome to the ABC wide world of Counter-Strike. I'll be bummed, man. I will. That'll be a sad day because we already are buttoned up, right? We have esports that are buttoned up, right?
Yep, definitely.
League is buttoned up. And I was very fearful, Duncan, for you and I at MLG, but at least I knew you had done MLG before because they generally are buttoned up. And Chris wanted me, Puckett wanted me in ties. And I was like, I am so morally, like the last tie I bought was like 10 years ago. I don't wear them, and I don't think they belong in esports.
This ties into what I was saying about actually initially about the way you will take a stand when you think things should be done away. And obviously what Richard alluded to before is because you have a real job outside of money, you've made a lot of money out from even esports itself. It's not like you have to go, but I can't say that to this guy because he might not hire me for the next event.
That is true.
So the benefit there is you can, if you think something is the way it should be done, you can say it, okay. What's funny is that's a great example, the MLG one, okay, because when me and you worked at X Games, not X Games, Sevo rather, that MLG produced, etc. What people would think, okay, what happens there is Sevo and MLG come in and they say, right, Scoots, Thorin, we saw what you did at Gfinity, we're going to button you up, it can't be like that, it's going to go, and they pull us so far back that we're like, oh, what are the rules? It's the other way round. Yeah, they were like, listen, obviously, like, things have to be a certain way, but if anything, we were winning them over. We were showing them some banter, we were doing this, that, and then they were sort of actually loosening up. Believe it or not, if you could have seen what that green room was like, I had people who themselves really do believe that esports has to be tie and blazer, American NFL Super Bowl. I had some of those people just like losing their mind as anyone's ever heard my green room banter shit, like esports would be over if anyone ever got one of those like
right up there, man.
Like scanning devices. My career would be over, mate.
And Duncan had so many more targets either in the room or right outside.
But I was winning them over, right, Scott? They were starting to love it, right?
Yeah, I mean, when Puckett came to us and went, wow, you just filled for 47 minutes and it felt like nothing. I'm like, that's why you hired us, right? And again, they were actually very hands off. I mean, they didn't. Again, I think the one thing they said is, "Hey, try not to swear." Well,
here's the thing, Scott. You mentioned that point there. That's what's funny is that is what is one of the best examples in terms of actually what in anything shows the efficacy of this style of having like an organic style with people, real personalities who can say what they want. We've actually fooled the entire esports industry in terms of players and fans, okay, Scott? Because you know what the criticisms are of events that we do? Fans go, why did they talk for so long? I want to see Fnatic play Nip now. And then you know what the players do? The players go, why are they still talking? I want to play my game next. You know the genius of that? We all know this, but I'm going to say it for people who are watching. We never go on for more than about 10 minutes out of choice. If you ever see a broadcast with us that goes on for 10 plus minutes, and if it goes on for half an hour, by the way, it was an extreme case, we are now being told in Scott's ear, Phil, oh my God, a computer's broken, the place is burning down, one of the players is dead, we're having to draft someone in, see, has he got a brother? And the whole time, you never know. You know why? Because on those ESL broadcasts you're talking about where it's really awkward, and they're like, what do you think about the CZ? You know, something like that. You know what's really stilted? It's never like that in ours. You don't know that we're filling because we just keep going with the banter and then we have a good point to make here and we keep it flowing and we have jokes sometimes to fill in some space and we make fun of someone there. And so what's funny is we're doing such a good job that people actually think we're doing a shit job. Everyone in the industry, except people behind the camera. Like, by the way, any fan who gets mad, okay, and says, "Oh, why do these events hire Thorin?" I'll tell you what. I tell you why these events hire me, right? Because the number of people who are producer people who are like, "Oh, great," who comes out after those segments and they're like, "Great job, guys! I can't believe you filled for 30 minutes. Like, fucking amazing job." They don't give a fuck if we make one joke that's slightly off guard because we just did what other people can't do. I'm afraid, right?
Yeah. And no, you're on the fucking money, dude. Like, I've had this a bunch of times, as you know. You know, when I'm doing the hosting desk, and it's like, all right, so I even made a video about this, saying like, this is why delays happen at events, and a lot of the time it's players, or you know, very rarely it's technical ineptitude from the tournament organizer. But like, at no point does it ever come from the analysis desk or casters.
Like, I'd love to live in a world, Richard, where I was like, wait a minute, get right. I haven't finished my point, mate. Yeah. Like, that doesn't exist. It's the opposite. It's like, get right's ready now. Shut the fuck up.
Here's the other part that you're not saying. If at any point we try and run over, you've got a producer in your ear. He's going, you need to finish this point now. No more points here. It doesn't matter if, like, Thorin might be about to decipher the fucking Rosetta Stone on fucking air. That ain't happening. Like, Thorin might go, I've just got it. I've just discovered the meaning of life, guys. Guys, listen. And the producer's like, cut Thorin off. Thorin's doing it again. Fuck it. Get right. He's got his mouth.
And by the way, for fans, think about how shit we sometimes look, where you guys don't get to know because we have to be pros. Where I'm actually one sentence in to a 10-sentence thing where the 9th sentence is the key point, right? And then Scott does the symbol below the table that means literally don't say more than 3 more words. So no matter what I'm saying, I have to go, and they might win the game. And then everyone thinks, he's a fucking moron. That doesn't even mean anything. It's like, because I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to continue, and I'm not allowed to go, what is that in my ear? You must stop. Like, I can't do that either.
Right, so on the desk, you got no fucking rights whatsoever. It's basically like, we'll let you fucking fill when we need you to fill, and you can make all the mad points and make our production look smooth and fluid. You cover for the players being assholes. You cover for the admins being inept. You cover for everyone, basically, when you're talent, right? But actually, if at any point you want to maybe freestyle it a little bit and use it as a platform to be get fucked. Get fucked, I guess. That's not happening. So it's got to be said, actually. Like, one of the reasons why I think we probably ended up collectively as 3 of us getting so much work is exactly what Duncan says, that we're capable of filling and kind of making it look vaguely natural. Not always. I do a bunch of games. I don't follow a lot of games. Sometimes I have to ask some really weird questions. But I think the reason I get away with it is I don't pretend to know about those games. I go, look, guys, this might be a stupid question, knowing I'm about to ask a stupid question. Then I ask the stupid question, everyone laughs and goes, yeah, that is a stupid question, and here's why. And it fills that gap and it smooths it over. But yeah, but at no point does any... I mean, look, I don't even mind telling this story now. I won't name the player involved. You guys both know it. But one of the fucking things that really fucking tilted me, like put me on Vietnam veteran levels of PTSD.
I know where we're going already.
Yeah, I know you fucking do. Was that we were at a Gfinity. And, you know, we'd had loads of delays. It was one of the early Gfinities. We'd had a bunch of delays. And we were being asked to fill all the fucking time. And we were doing it. And then by the last day, it had gone pretty fucking smooth, right? So we had to do some final thoughts. And I think I maybe took 7 minutes to surmise my final thoughts about an event. Now, keep in mind, on day 1, day 2, I've been doing ridiculous levels of filling, like both of these guys have been. Like, so what do you think? Indiana Jones, like, it was like it was unreal, the fucking shit we were pulling out of our ass. Like, it was unbelievable.
Oh shit.
Anyway,
short round.
It was the very last. It was the very last thing, and apparently all the players were having to wait and watch us before they were let out of the fucking thing, right? So we did it. We closed the show, and a player came up to me are fucking playing. As I said, 95% of all delays come from players. A player came up to me, a very well-known player, came up to me and went, "Man, you really went on a bit too much at the end there. I just wanted to get out." And I... What the fuck? Are you fucking serious? Because your fucking mouse sensitivity doesn't translate on this fucking PC, or you can't get the fucking native resolution you crave. We have to film for 40 fucking minutes because of you guys. I went absolutely fucking ham. And he's looking at me like, I was just sort of kind of joking, man. Fuck you, Joe. Fuck this show. These guys, sorry, I went fucking mental because I thought, like, there's nothing more stressful, man. We're the guys on the front line. Like, if a player performs bad, yeah, he gets flamed on Reddit.
Yeah.
It sucks to be him. But when we are like, Richard Lewis should never work again. And here's the thing, actually. The worst part is there are companies out there that listen to Reddit threads, that will make hires based on Reddit threads.
Sure.
So when a bunch of retards don't even understand what's going on behind the scenes, they don't even realize that you're filling for the benefit of every fucker else involved in esports, and they're going to make a hate thread about you, and then they're going to go, can we hire Richard Lewis again? Has he gone too far this time by speaking for 7 fucking minutes at the end? You know, like, it's super frustrating. Like, it fucking annoys you, you know? And I just couldn't believe that a player of all people would even fucking say that to somebody, you know? Like, I cover for you.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, we worked DreamHack Winter with Robin Fiflorin, right? And he was an analyst, right? And I think it was the morning of day 2, or it might even have been the night of day 1 when we were almost done. And he kind of looked at us and went, I had no idea how hard this was. You know, and he wasn't even like through the weekend yet of analysis, and he was a rotator on our desk, right? He's like, you guys have to watch everything. You don't get because like, it's a double-edged sword. Casters have to talk a lot, and then we fill for them. So they have a shitload of talking, but we don't get. We have to either talk or we have to then watch, because you can't take the 2 hours off during the match to go eat and fuck around, because you have to watch the match, because you got to come back and talk about the match, right? Whereas casters can fuck off between their sets, right?
Oh, and no, it's no joke, Scott, that we watch more Counter-Strike than your favourite caster, everyone who's listening now. Because when your favourite caster isn't casting the game, most of the time, sometimes he sits in the green room with us and watches it if he's got nothing to do, you know? Other times, he goes to the hotel, he has a meal, he talks to people, he goes to meet some friends. Okay, technically, as soon as we're off air, we don't have to be there. But what are we going to talk about the game in half an hour? Also, we have no idea ever. It's actually a nightmare. It's like a prison, okay? Because you know you've got between half an hour and an hour off. But you will never know if it's 31 minutes or 107 minutes. You will never know. So as a result, you're stuck in limbo where you like, most of the time you can't even go for food yourself. Because what if you got called back? God forbid the server gets DDoSed and you instantly have to come back 5 minutes from now. So basically, you're going to be there for 12 hours constantly, like, on watch. Like, the second I call you up, you have to go in the game now. Like, it's way harder than people think, right?
Yeah. And again, I just thought it was cool that Robin, as a player who probably had the same preconceived notions of, oh, those fuckers don't know what they're talking about, and all they do is yammer on, and that's an easy job. They're making all this money. We're all doing all the work. Like, he did it for a day and went, holy shit, this is not easy. He liked it, you know, and he was good at it, but it definitely isn't easy when you...
Oh, Scott, I had a player also. I won't mention who it was. Another pro player. At the last event we did, Sivo, who actually said to me that he'd seen me once at an event not watching the screen for a round of the game, and as a result, he thought like I was a sham as an analyst because I don't watch all the games. And I just said to him, do you know how many hours of Counter-Strike I watch a day, mate? I watch more than you when I'm at the event. You fuck off to the hotel, you fucking cunt. And meanwhile, because I didn't watch one round of a shit game when I'm doing like 48 hours out of like 72 at a LAN, he was like, you didn't watch the one that I was like, mate, I'll end you. Like, okay.
There was probably actually on the B stream and we weren't watching it anyway, right? Like, there was one of those probably.
It's that sort of a scenario, you know.
And again, I'll never bitch too much about, like, we've always talked about this. Like, I feel so lucky to get paid to talk
awesome,
about my
isn't it?
game. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty fucking cool. Not perfect, but pretty fucking cool.
But it is very much a survival and endurance sport.
Yeah. I think like a lot of things, it looks a lot easier when you're at home watching. You know, it so does. I mean, again, we're talking about the caster side of it, or, you know, the talent side of it, and there's like 15, 20, 30, 50 people behind the curtain really making a lot of shit happen that never.
Yeah, I
happened,
mean
right?
that I will
They
say,
never get any
like,
credit.
I fucking wouldn't want to be the production guys, because
Oh,
if you
God.
think about what we do, and it's like Duncan says, you always got to be watching. You always be watching CS because you need to bring up points. More often than not, we're the guys that tell the production team you need to replay these rounds, and
Yep.
so we've always got to watch the games, yeah. But the production team, they're there typically before us. They're there typically after us. They have to do everything. They got to deal, they got to deal with so much shit. Like, definitely in the fucking chain, like, shit rolls down hills, right? Like,
Yeah.
it massively.
Well, you do realise, Rich, our version of that, okay, is when we're leaving the event at like midnight and we're like, this is bullshit. Well, I can't even get to sleep now. Then that guy's like, okay, I'll just go and take this event down for 3 hours with all the scaffolding, you fucking cunt. Like,
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
leave at that point.
Does.
This is bullshit. I can't even get to the after party on time now.
We're complaining. We're going like, it's fucking midnight, right? This is fucking bullshit. Like, you want me back in at fucking 7 a.m. for fucking rehearsals? I'm going to get 6 hours sleep. This is fucking shit. And there's some little producer guy going, I sleep under this desk.
Yeah. And by the way, if he does say that to us, by the way, Scoots, you can back me up on this. We just say, yeah, but we're not you. We shouldn't have to come at that time.
Mate, I'm pretty sure I've heard you say, get the fuck out of my face for that. Get a better job then.
I have. Richard, that was actually my line. One of them
That's
said
pretty
something
much
like,
the standard answer.
I said, like, how can I come at 7? And he was like, well, we're going to be at 6. And I was like, get a better job, mate. Like, I don't have to do that, yeah.
But yeah,
Actually, that was what I said. It's true.
that's your fault, bro.
But I had a good point, right? I did have a good point. Just because his job.
And Reservoir Dogs.
Just because his job sucks.
We
We shouldn't have to.
Type, you know what I mean?
It's true, though, Rich. Just because his job sucks doesn't mean ours should. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
It is
Don't
true.
punish me.
There's a point behind the assholeness.
Yeah,
I don't even
the call
know.
time debate always happens every event.
All I do know is that all that fucking glitters is not gold, man. And I remember, every level I've been at, actually. I mean, this probably speaks volumes about me, but every level I've been at, it's been like, right, I'm here now. This is gonna be awesome. Oh shit. Okay, don't worry though. Keep working, and you get to do this. This is shit. But it's all right though, because above this is this thing. I remember when I first started casting fucking many years ago, and I was like, right, I'll be a caster. You'll get all this mad respect. Everyone loves shoutcasters. They just get fucking, jerked off all the time. It's going to be awesome. And then it was like, wow, I've just done a fucking 16-hour day sat in the one chair in my house. Buckets of sweat pouring off me, blow my voice out. I got nothing to look forward to except doing probably the same tomorrow. And I'm making a nominal fee for doing it. And everyone says I'm shit at it anyway. So what the fuck am I doing? Like, well, okay. I'll be a host, right? Being a host, that's good. Oh, now I got a guy in my ear who tells me I gotta control guys like Thorin. Yeah. And if I don't, I fucked up. It's your desk, man. Okay, cool. This is great. This is awesome. Yeah. So it doesn't matter where you go. Like when I was playing, I was like, oh, managing will be cool. When I was managing, owning, maybe nah, okay. Coaching, nah, okay.
Retiring
Casting,
is where it's at. And
journalism,
working
yeah,
for
exactly.
fun. Retiring and working for fun is right.
Buying a bunch of shares in a company and then cashing out is where it's at. That's what I should have.
Duff, baby.
The McKagan.
Duff. Oh shit.
Duncan's dead.
I'm listening. So what do you think then? Let me ask you this, Scott. If you've worked on big production events outside of esports, are they right in a way? Like is there going to one day be a point in time where you couldn't hire me and Richard, at least to do our style of stuff now, in order for it to get like the biggest sponsor and to be the biggest thing on TV? Like, could we slip through the cracks? Could we thread the needle, as my good buddy Quickshot says, every fucking cast?
I mean, again, as bigger money comes, as bigger networks, the ESPNs, the et cetera, come in, there is a homogenation that in their world has to happen, right? We're too edgy. We're not mainstream enough, right? Now, does that mean again, I swore at SIVA more than you did, right? So swearing's easy to stop doing. It's more of like, can you be critical? Can we have fun and make jokes? Does that all go away and we truly end up with, super buttoned up, like ESPN sports? But even like I look at us more like the best. Was it the best damn sports show? Right? Is that still on even?
In America,
is that,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's on now, but it used to be for like the 2000s.
They seem to try. They wanted to be that edgy, like keep it real, talk showy kind of sports thing. But I don't know if it's still. I don't even know if it's still on. And obviously they weren't dropping f-bombs. I think there's a place for fringe casters, fringe talent like us. I think if you want to put it that way. But I think we might get pushed out by the suits, right? Or put in a box we don't want to be in, right?
But I look at the success of Too Good in something like Dota, right? And this guy just didn't give a fuck. I mean, James never has, right? So like,
but he got replaced by Red Eye, so.
Well, yeah,
I mean, he got replaced. His own choice. His own choice.
He fell on his own sword for that one.
Yeah, his own choice. Sure.
He said, I'm not even interested anymore. You know,
but they wanted to button him up to an extent too, right? So like they wanted him to be.
Yeah, but that's
less
like one event, right? Like if he'd gone to any other Dota event and was like, "Look, I'm gonna do it the Too Good way. I'm gonna make some outrageous jokes on air. I'm gonna say some crazy shit." I think people are gonna be like, "Well, you know, we're not super comfortable with that," but ultimately, the sponsors that sponsor our event and the advertisers that advertise in our event know we're hiring this guy to do this event. They know what his brand is. They know it's gonna be.
Yeah,
a little, you know, it's like if you hired Howard Stern or Jerry Sadowitz or, you know, some other, you know, or Frankie Boyle, to use a more contemporary example. If you hired them to be on your fucking show and host your event, you know they're going to say something that's going to fucking drive everyone into an apoplexy. You can't turn around and go, well, I had no idea Frankie Boyle would call the Queen an ugly old cunt, because he's obviously going to.
This would be my scenarios. If every esport ends up like the LCS, Duncan, in the sense that it's so homogenized and owned by whoever, then we're going to lose out, right? But as long as there's an open market system where ESL can be buttoned up and DreamHack cannot be buttoned up, there's a place for us. But I think if it ends up one to rule them all, the homogenized buttoned up ties will rule, and we will be out of work unless we change our ways, right? I think. But again, who knows, right? But I like the idea of for every buttoned up one, there's an opportunity to be unbuttoned, right? Like DreamHack has a different vibe. Gfinity has kind of a different vibe than DreamHack, but maybe more DreamHacky than ESL, like, right? So, yeah, that's I think it has to be a full sellout mode before no one's knocking on our doors anymore, right? And again, I'm the first one out, I think, because I only care about one game, and I'm not as good as Richard when it comes to hosting. I'm not in Europe where a lot of events are, and I'm not going to shift and be a host of other games. I have no desire to be a desk host for anything else other than Counter-Strike. You know, so Richard's got a variety of games under his belt, and he's a UK guy, and he's a great Counter-Strike guy. He can host, and he can banter, and he can analyze. Of all of us, I think that are the safest, if people would get off their stupid high horses, it would be you, Duncan, because of the inherent knowledge you bring that we don't, that no host will bring, right? And again, I'm so, and I know you've always said to us, I don't know if I'd work for ESL anyway, but I'm just bummed that you don't get asked every time for you to say no thank you, right? Because you belong at every major.
Okay.
Every major should have you. Me and Richard, whatever. Like, whatever. It's unfortunate, right? Yeah, you know, and I would love for them to ask you, and you say no, whatever, but at least get the ask, because you deserve to be on that desk. So I know, long answer to your, do we still have a shot at it? If ESL does to Counter-Strike what Riot did with LCS, we're done. Right?
Yeah, and I think, just to add to a brief addendum to that. The sad reality is that everyone's trying to turn esports into children's TV. I think we're heading towards an era of very, like you say, children's TV broadcasting. I think probably is when the corporations get here. The gambling thing's going to get sorted. I think the edge is going to be driven out. I mean, let's just be real. Like, when you look at what we've actually become in the West, where the group I used to most affiliate myself with, the liberals, I consider myself to be a liberal guy. The extreme liberals are doing more to eradicate fucking free speech than conservatives and fucking right wing guys. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and unfortunately, there's this really strong undercurrent of we don't like edge. We want you to make jokes, but we don't want them to offend us. And increasingly, companies are buying into that. Corporations are going to dictate that. And in 2 years, and I've made this point on air numerous times, there isn't going to be a guy like me or a guy like Duncan or a guy like you or a guy like Robert Olin. The edge is dead, right? It cannot exist. We want young, clean-cut, children's TV presenters, dancing on command. What a great game today, guys. And hey, it doesn't matter that a team lost. We're all winners. Yeah. Oh, even though we don't do gambling anymore, why don't we go over and see who won the lucky dip of super fruit vitamin drink sponsored by your government? It's going to be like that. It's going to be that fucking bleak. This dystopian bullshit just designed to sell people products. I mean, it's already happening, man. If you think again, I talked to some dude with strong ties to Amazon, and I'm like, hey, so you got Twitch TV now? How do you envision that working? And I was like, is it going to be like, hey, this player uses this mouse, click on this part of the screen, and we'll take you through to the shop, and you can buy that mouse directly from Amazon? And he's like, man, wouldn't that be great? I'm thinking, nah, motherfucker, it wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be great at all. That's where we're headed, dude. It's 2 years from now, we're all fucking dead anyway. I mean, I just believe it. Like, we're the fucking dinosaurs. The meteorite's already hit. We're fucking. So
you think the marketing will overshadow the sport of it?
Yeah, because look, man, the sport is the sport is the sport. Those players, those kids, are always going to need that outlet, right? They're always going to need to channel that talent into somewhere. And there'll always be companies that are willing to receive it. How it's marketed, how it's packaged, how you sell off the back of it, that can change and evolve, man. And you think about like, hey, shit, let's talk about UFC. Let's talk about literally how UFC came up. Anybody who's a big fan of MMA knows the evolution of UFC. You look at where it is right now. If you're an old school UFC fan, it's unfucking recognizable. And the core of the sport's the same, but the business side is so super different. And it's so super commercial. It's not as edgy. And look, man, even Dana White's having to fucking revise what he says on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, I am UFC.
Yeah.
Like, and Dana White's having to think about, can I call people assholes? And that's all he's doing, by the way. Not being homophobic, not being racist, not being transphobic. He's just calling people assholes. Like, this is unacceptable in the modern internet.
Well, and we've ended up with this corporate culture where politically correct is more important than ever, right? Gamergate and all this stuff outside of our world has turned everyone to, well, it's a beautiful day. Yes, it's raining, but rain is good too. Yes. So that only lends that if they're cleaning up the world and what we say to each other and how offended we all get no matter what everyone says, that's got to come our way, right? With the money.
Thing is, though, I think it works both ways on that topic, because the real question isn't just like, do they want us? It's also, would we want to do it if that was the option? Because here's the thing. I always have a distinction I make, which is like, I put it this way, if I really wanted to, I could definitely just do 100% dry analysis, and I would have no jokes, I would have no banter, and I would never veer near anything edgy, okay? But first of all, that would make the event, I think, not as good. And then secondly, I actually wouldn't enjoy it as much. So what would happen then is I would then start to make choices on events I wouldn't do because I know I won't have any fun there. So for example, whenever we bring up this whole ESL topic, I'll put it simply how I frame it in my own mind like this, okay? If ESL didn't have majors, say they only ran events they used to run, they ran the EPL winter event, they had those raid call cups years ago, okay? If they only ran medium-sized events, this wouldn't even be a discussion. I wouldn't ever work for them again. Don't particularly like them. There'd be no reason for it to happen, okay? The problem solved. No big deal. The only problem is they have majors. Now, the only reason people don't know this, I ever worked for ESL in CSGO was to do the major. Because do you remember this, Scott? I told you after the first event, DreamHack Winter, I even said after that desk wrapped up, I mean, fucking little did I know saying it to that desk of people, but I said to everyone on that desk there, if possible, we should all try and do every major, no matter what you think of the companies and people, etc. Because if there's going to be more majors and this is their first point of access to Counter-Strike, we have to do it right. We can't let some shit guy who's like a new hire or doesn't know fuck all or is going to do like some lame, like what we're talking about here, just a really lame impression of like a guy who does the NFL, a worse version of it. Can't let him be the first point of entry so that people watch and they go, oh, actually this isn't that cool as a game, it's not really that interesting, yeah, I'm done. We have to make it so that, okay, forget the other events, they can do what they want, the major has to be sick. And so the only reason why this is a debate really is because for stuff like the majors, okay, on those ones I've got a bit more leeway. I just want them to be good. So since I have the ego to think that I would do it better than someone else, yeah, maybe for those ones I'd button up a little bit more. Obviously with DreamHack I don't have to so much, but it's true. If I had to do it for every event, okay, I probably would still do some. Maybe I'd even stick around doing it, but I definitely wouldn't do as many. Like I'd have to cut down how many, and maybe one day I'd have to stop because I don't think it'd be as good to just do pure dry analysis, you know.
Yep.
Okay. It killed me turning down this fucking major, dude. It fucking killed me to turn on the major because I'm like you, man. I want the major to be done right. I think I can bring something to that fucking table. I look at what they're doing now, and this is how ESL are going to freeze me and you and me and Scott the fuck out of this game. They're going to bring external people in. You know, they're just going to bring them in, and everyone's going to go because they're fucking idiots. Everyone's just going to go, oh, that guy who's never had anything to do with esports is fucking great. Can we get him back? He's super polished. He doesn't care about any of you fucks. Doesn't care whether you live or die. He cares about a paycheck. He ain't never... And that's the hilarity, actually. Everyone goes, oh, Richard Lewis and Thorin and SirScoots, what have they ever done for esports? Well, a hell of a lot more than a guy who works for the fucking BBC. I mean, that's got to be said, right? Whatever you think about us as people, nah. Fuck logic. Fuck logic. So that's how we're going to get froze the fuck out. But it killed me to turn this one down. Because, you know, I'm like, I don't believe I got much longer doing this anyway, right? And I want to be the guy that at least steers it the right way, makes it a bit fun. Maybe like you guys did with Sivo, maybe I can make ESL not be so fucking buttoned up and stuffy. It's going to take a better man than me to change that, obviously, but I'll give it a go. Now,
well, at least you had the opportunity to turn it down. I did the first 4, and then I shut myself out, and then now I'm shut out, I think. You know.
No, but like, fuck it, dude. Like, I don't give a fuck, man. I told them that it's like we either all come back to the table and then we can talk, or I'm just done. Like, I don't give a fuck. I could be the most popular guy in the world. Like, literally, like, just fucking everyone on my dick. I mean, that would never happen, but like, it wouldn't matter to me. Yeah. It's like I've always said, esports for me is about the people. It's about the people you get to work with, about the people you meet, and ESL are shitting all over that, man, right now. Like they're right. They've got to put it this way. ESL would. Everyone always criticizes ESL. Oh, you haven't even got very good casters, or you haven't got a good stable of talent. ESL would love to have all of the people. There's a reason why those people aren't at ESL, right? Working with ESL isn't necessarily a fun experience. You got to drop everything you do. You got to move out to fucking Cologne. You got to fucking bow down to the ESL corporate way of doing things. There is no room for a wild card Richard Lewis or a wild card Duncan Shields or a fucking aging and crazy Scott Smith. There's no fucking room for that, right? You got to be a certain type of person, and I know they got real talent over there. Talent I've seen come up that actually gets stifled by that system, and as a result they get all that hate on social media, and they can't even come out and go, look, if you knew what I could really do broadcasting a game, you know, not being forced to do World of Tanks or whatever, just sucking the joy out of my life, you would see the real me. But you can't. Machine, right? Again, this kid, right? Let me tell you about this kid. So when they said he's gonna do the desk, everyone else was like, holy fuck, this is a risk, this is a gamble, right? And trust me, they look for other people first. I was the only guy who was confident this kid could do this. I worked with that guy, I roomed with that guy. He was super nervous as well, like shaking like a dog having a shit, right? Visible nervous, like on air. Still fucking brilliant. Still so good. Still so good. for what he should have been, for what the level should have been set at. This guy's got like infinite potential. He should be invested in. And like people rip on him in the community. Think about what he's got to do. Think about the shoes he's got to fill. Think about the shoes I even have to fill. You have to fill. You know, there are some real incredible fucking esports hosts out there that are completely different to what we do. And Machine, he knows. I'm right down in there. This guy comes out, he does a great job, right? But unfortunately, actually, when he was doing what he was doing, as you said earlier, he has to ask the boring question. What do you think about that? How do you... He's not going to tell the guy in his ear. Like, I've had that. Hey, maybe you could ask them this. And I'm just thinking, fuck you, mate. I'll ask the questions here. And I'll do my own thing. He ain't going to do that. It's his fucking first real gig, right?
Yeah.
He needs to impress.
I mean, they set him up to almost fail, right? Too many people on his panel, too stilty. Because, again, I met him at Gamescom last year because he was doing a lot of Call of Duty stuff, and Paul was getting him in the loop of stuff. And great guy, great caster, great host. Like, I can't even be mad that I've kind of been replaced by him because he's fucking awesome. But they're not letting Alex be Alex. This last event, you saw a little bit more of Alex because the whole tournament was fun, right? The Pick'em tournament they just did at Gamescom, where so you could see a little bit of his personality. But part of it is you if you put me with 4 people around me, even I can't get banter going because I have no time, right? If you all have to answer the question, I got to move on because I got another question. So
we got 10 minutes.
At its core, and that's not Alex's fault that he needs 1 or 2 people and that's it. 3-guy desk works perfect. Good banter, good combos, because you can actually convert. Because I talked to Hiko at Sivo about his experience on that desk, and he was like, "We couldn't converse because there was no time." And that's what you want. I want Hiko talking to Thorin, right, or Thorin asking something of Acadian or whatever. You want the conversation to happen too, because then it feels real. It feels more natural and less buttoned up. So, and I'm sure, again, I like Alex. I got no hard feelings that he's got the host job. I just hope they make it easier and better for him.
That's what I mean.
Right? So he comes out.
It's a systemic failure. Yeah. That's the problem with the ESL events. That's why it was like, look, man, like, I'm at a stage in my life where, like, I don't even know how much longer I'm going to be doing this for. I think everybody realizes that now. I'm really fucking jaded. If I wasn't jaded before, having people say they're outside my hotel and they're going to fucking kill me.
Yeah, this last week's been tough for you.
Yeah, it's just, shit. All right. You know what, guys, fuck it, like, because here's something, this is just an aside. I love how when people go, well, why can't you just ignore the haters? I'll tell you why you can't. Because the haters are crazier than the fans. And the fans are pretty crazy. But when a fan says to you, I love you and I love everything you do and I will love you for the end of time, please send this photograph. And you go, okay, mate, no problem. And then another guy goes, I'm outside your hotel, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to fucking skull fuck your kids, and then I'm going to rape your wife. And you go, And then somebody actually on social media goes, just ignore that guy.
Yeah.
Just ignore that guy. Isn't there a guy, like, didn't the guy just tell you he likes what you do for a living today? And you go, oh, you're supposed to go, yeah, actually, it doesn't work like that. It's not an equal fucking play.
You can't, take one and not the other. They come, either take both or you can't take either.
Thing is, on this topic of analysis desk, I've got a good way to wrap this up because we're running out of time here. Richard has to go do something. So I've got a good final point, I think, to end on, like a positive, because this has got fucking dark, obviously, over the last half an hour.
That's my fault always.
We're all out of work. We got one more gig.
But here's the thing, okay? One of the reasons, again, why I actually like the way we do things and why it's not just like, we don't just go ham and do it exactly how we want, but we've sort of decided where we're going to allow to a little looser boundary, okay? One of the reasons why that's great is because, like I kind of alluded to with the MLG thing, it means that, as hard as the events are, and sometimes you have to watch a boring game and you have to wait an hour and you have to get DDoSed, you have to fill all this time, there's so much fun in the right moments because we have like the camaraderie. I made this point after that whole shit went down with Raheem with Richard, that one of the reasons why I really didn't like the way that was framed is exactly because anyone like us who's been to this many events, the first thing you do is realize, right, well, the only people who are in the same fucking boat with me is all the people I'm doing the event with. So the first people you try to have a camaraderie with is those people, because the idea is, even if the whole event goes to shit, at least we'll have some fun together, we'll get through it, it'll all be good. So as a result,
make fun of everybody else.
Every event I've ever worked at, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to name names, but I've worked with so many shit people on air, off air, events that I thought were just terrible at their jobs. But you know what's funny is, is, when I do the event, I actually like him in a way at the event. I get along with him. And part of me even thinks, even if that guy's shit, well, okay, if he's an on-air guy, maybe I can help him out. Maybe actually I can see where he's got problems. I can try and help him out here. I can lean him in the right direction. What's funny is, it overwhelmingly, even if after the event you go back to thinking that guy's shit, when you're at the event, it's a different vibes. That's actually one of the things that's good about these events. It's always fun to do in that sense. And so as a result, I think if it becomes too buttoned up, we'll lose that as well. So that's why I don't want that to happen. So anyway, do you have any... Let's do some final words here, Scott. Do you have anything final to say?
I mean, again, thanks for having me on. Pleasure always chatting with you guys. I mean, again, the very first thing... probably most people, when they get asked to do a gig, they ask the dates, and then they ask how much money. I ask the dates, and I ask who else is being hired. Because, like, again, I am in kind of a lucky position that I don't have to take gigs. And if I'm going to take these gigs, I want to be surrounded by people I like, people I respect, and people that are going to put on a good show with me, right? So immediately when I hear your guys' names next to mine, I'm like, sign me up. And then I start talking about money, right? Like, I think if someone called me and said it's this person, and you, and that wasn't two people I would like, didn't have this kind of vibe with, it would be a buttoned-up show, I would be like, yeah, probably not a good vibe for me, right? It was the very first thing I asked Adam at MLG. I'm like, is Thorin coming? Because, again, thankfully you had done X Games for them. I'm like, please tell me Thorin's coming. Because, again, they're in a weird situation that they can't hire a whole lot of talent because of Twitch contracts and ESL and all that kind of conflict of interest. So I was very nervous. I'm like, I can't go do a buttoned-up MLG without my boy Thorin, and it worked out great. So final thoughts. I mean, again, I know we've talked about a lot of the negative. We're all still here. That says a lot, I think, to the positivity of, obviously, if we all thought that this was absolutely a dead end, like, we're all crazy and we're all fucking stupid and weird in some regards, but we would all have bailed long ago if there wasn't something here beyond just a paycheck, right? And we're not alone in our weird joining the circus and can't leave the circus vibe, and we're good people, right? There are assholes all around us, but there's a whole lot of good people like us too, and we're assholes too at the same token. So final thoughts are, like, again, I think, as I used to always say at the end of Live on 3, stop hating games you don't like, support the games you like as much as possible, and now, to allude to Richard's point, if there's that second-tier game, that third esport game you kind of like, support it a little more this year. Give it a little bit more of your love.
Fuck,
right?
Richard, I've just realised all we've done is replace Slasher and DJ Wheat. That's all we've done, mate. Fuck. What have we done? What have we... Oh, my God. It's only just dawned on me right now.
So close. What have we, you not figured it out. Done? Thank you.
How do I get a gun license and fucking shoot myself? How do I do that?
So, yeah, just support the games you love. Don't hate so much on the ones you... And the other thing, because, again, we've talked a lot about this, like, you know... Just remember that you often don't know what goes on behind the scenes as a player, as talent, as a team owner, as an event organizer. And, you know, like, we throw a lot of pitchforks out, right? My Twitter feed every morning with my morning coffee is, who am I going to fucking yell at today, right? But our voices usually come with a little bit of, like, reality of, we know why we're bitching, right? Like, my pitchforks come out when they should come out, I think, right? And I think our scene has a lot of pitchforks that come out too early, right? Just check your pitchfork a little bit, right? And again, like Richard said, support a few more esports, right? Because our legion, I mean, you think those Dota numbers are big. You think those Counter-Strike numbers are big. You think those League numbers are big. What if we did all put them together? Holy fuck. Look out, mainstream. All right?
Richard?
Echo all of Scott's stuff. Look, here's the reality. I don't think anything can be done to fucking change the tide anyway. Like, I'm out. 100%. I just need to pick when. I don't want to be here when it's fucking... When Gordon the Gopher... Yeah, and what do you think of Get Right with that ace? Like, when it gets to that fucking stage and it's coming, brother. I don't want to be here for that. Like, I can't do it. When it's fucking Sesame Street, Sesame Skins. Sesame Skins. Yeah, exactly. When Mr. fucking Socko's here, I'm fucking done anyway. And unfortunately, it's going that way. Just recently, I did realize the fucking hate ain't worth it. The fucking madness that we put ourselves through just to try and do a job ain't worth it. The people are worth it. I love the people, and I hope those people, persevere and are more equipped for the battles ahead than I certainly am. But unfortunately, I don't think esports has a happy ending. I think it goes the way of any other sport, and that is it has community roots. It starts with a wonderful, flourishing amateur scene, and then it gets slowly but surely took over by professionalism, then corporatism. And I don't think esports is going to be any different. And I don't want to be around. I mean, ironically, maybe that's when I would be the most used. But it's just going to be too ugly. So I know you don't want to end on a downer. So
I don't mind. So okay, go on, give me something. Give me something. Come on.
No. I'll give you some
Urge music.
So here's what I will say. I'm super excited that there's going to be people from my generation of players from way back in 2005 that are playing Counter-Strike now that are actually going to be beneficiaries of the big payday. I'm not talking about majors. I'm talking about fucking real paydays. I'm talking about these guys are going to be millionaires. You know, I look at guys like MBK. MBK tweeted out at the height of all of this bullshit. He went, I've known Richard since I was 15-year-old. 15. Blew my fucking mind that it's been that long. I did his first interview in England. And to see a guy like that who I've known since he was a boy get a fucking payday, be a professional athlete, I played some small part in helping him along that road. Yeah, that means a fuck ton to me. So, yeah. There's going to be a small group of us, old school people, that do reach the promised land. I won't be in it, but that's all right. I never cared about that anyway.
Thanks to Alpha Draft for all the money. That's the end. Goodbye.